Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Big Boys Table. It's episode 29, and we're going to try to escape the tech demo today. And here's
luck.
Mesk. So,
Hi.
hi.
This is me offering moral support for escaping a black hole with nothing besides a pair of partly sullied gamer girl panties.
Think you could extract the bathwater?
It's possible. How much gold is in it for me?
I don't know, it sells for some pretty good money. You know, unrelated, but the company that I work for now, or the group of individuals that I work for, they set up a Patreon, and there's a $5,000 tier that, $5K dollar tier that gives you, for $5,000, 5, not 3, 5, you get Gamer Boy bathwater from all of the employees. So there's a very high chance I'm going to have to sell my fucking bathwater soon. Just saying. Let's get right into it, though. We've got quite the experience lined up for you today, because I'm going to try to escape that fucking black hole that Mesk was talking about. At the beginning of the previous podcast, I mentioned that I always wanted to try to make something that transcended the concept of being a tech demo, even though I'm exclusively making mods, basically. So this is more so a podcast for people who struggle with perfectionism, which is a very specific kind of tism. And I'm hoping that we can get some insight from you, Mesk, and we can just share our thoughts, pool our resources, put our heads together, all two of them. Perfectionism. We're going to try to smack that out of here. So what do you say? You got any immediate thoughts on the subject? Trying to not, be so perfectionist?
Well, recent memory comes to the particles in retribution, where there's sort of like, you have to recognize diminishing returns, basically.
Right.
In terms of what you're getting out of how much time you're spending in something. But my workflow also tends to be really non-linear. So I kind of like avoid a lot of problems like that because I don't usually focus too much on one thing at once. Like this is going to be something you run into if you focus on one thing for a very long time. It's actually something I've heard from a few people, is that you kind of get stuck in not necessarily perfectionism, but a kind of like a gray area where it's hard to really like properly assess what it is you're even doing. You need to like distance yourself from something or from the entire project and then come back to it later.
Yeah, and that's pretty disheartening for a lot of people to hear, I'm sure, because one of the things that I get complaints about the most is people who say, like, I have this idea and I have some concepts and I've practiced enough execution wise to know that I can pull these concepts off, but I'm having difficulty, feeling content with these things. And really, they just want to keep working on those things. They have some motivation, but it's getting impeded by that perfectionism. And so to hear that one of the potential solutions, anyways, is to just not really like skip it completely, but the idea is like take a break and come back to it. Yep. It's probably pretty apt advice. It's actually
really important.
Yeah, it definitely will rub some people the wrong way. So I think we could put that thing to one side for sure as a potential solution. But one of the examples I wanted to give, because you also mentioned not getting caught up in diminishing returns, figuring out what you're doing that is basically, it's not pointless, but you're putting in like 8 hours of work, 10 hours of work, 12 hours of work on one thing that's really not really that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. You're harping over minor details when the vast majority of your workflow is actually not done yet. You could be transferring your energy and working on something that requires a lot more attention, that isn't even close to the level of quality that whatever you're harping on about right now is. And that's sort of like almost a microcosm of taking a break, because you're taking a break from that one thing that you're harping on about so that you can go work on something that needs your attention more and come back to it. But it's all within the same project. So presumably that could also be a potential solution to this sort of issue.
There is actually one recent thing I can talk about that's sort of in this area. It was obviously I do a lot of work for D&D, and not just maps, but also editing images and stuff for tokens. Now, I'm no artist, so to get what I want, it's it basically involves a lot of smoke and mirrors and theft. So I do everything from I go down the deep dark corners of the internet looking for that one piece of thing I can use for a unit or an NPC or even a piece of a map. And most often that involves me finding something that has background, it has JPEG compression, it's got watermarks, it's the wrong colors. But it's like something I look at and I think, if these and those changes were made, this would actually be kind of useful. So, obviously, I'm not an artist. Again, very, very, very important to note this because this actually goes back into several other things I mentioned throughout some of the earlier podcasts where try not to spend a large amount of time doing stuff inefficiently. Well, I've got a deep, dark fantasy secret to tell you. I do a lot of stuff very, very inefficiently because I don't know how to do better. So I take these images from these questionable websites that are not as questionable, but happen to be buried away because people do their darnest to avoid the AI-driven shit that is Google and everything else that uses Oath. And I edit them pixel by pixel. And that is how I make them transparent. So I'm gonna take this moment to dig up some stuff. It might be kind of hard while I'm holding down this key, mind you, but I will try. Okay, so let me find a good example. I've surely got a good example here somewhere. But so anyways, the workflow, like basically for like a complex image, you've got a series of tasks you want to do with this here complex image. For example, you want to change the colors. And maybe you want to create a transparent background. And then for the more complex ones, like the one I'm really going to talk about, you got a lot of other modifications to make that you are not confident with. Like, for example, removing certain details because your target resolution is a lot lower than the source resolution, or simplifying stuff to fit a certain style, or whatever. But you're editing somebody else's art, which could be rather complicated. So, once you start getting into the thick of things, you can kind of spend a really, 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 really long time on very stupid, mundane shit when you don't have a really long time to spend. So, typically, our D&D sessions, we play once every week. Now, we have kind of a break period right now because one of our players isn't always available because he's an archaeologist and sometimes he gets hung up and, work from far from functional internet, even electricity. So sometimes we get a little bit of time where it's like, okay, well, I can invest some time into planning for the future, but there's still a finite amount of time I have to prepare assets for the future. So if I spent like some of these edits can take me upwards of a week of man hours to do for something that we'll see maybe 1 or 2 hours of screen time at the absolute tops. So uh, yeah. When you've got a lot of like that's just for one graphic. So if you've got like dozens of graphics to do and dozens of maps to do, you got to be conscious about how much time you put into it. Now you want to keep consistent in quality. When you're making these things, you don't want to cut corners. You don't want to say, "Well, I'm not happy with this." If you're not happy with it, you got to change it. You got to step in, you got to make the changes. But you've got to recognize where it is you are starting to have problems and maybe readjust your priorities. So just feel free to hop in here if you want, because I'm kind of going a little bit of a tangent as I toss this crap into your chat here. All right, so I need a graphic for basically one of the final bosses of the game, or at least one of the potential final bosses. But it's something they could encounter somewhat soon. So I had somebody send me a bunch of potential candidates, and this is the candidate I settled on. Now, this is the source image. So it's already transparent, it's already a PNG. It saves me a lot of headache in that regards. But if you were to drop this down to the sizes I'm typically using within Roll20 as it is, a lot of those details are going to get completely smashed in it. So that's going to be a problem. Now, normally when I'm doing, actually I can swing back for a second because this is a good one to talk about as well. Let me find it. All right, so this, I'm just going to quickly swing in here. So here's another one. This is one I did literally right before this project. So, that's the source, and then this is my end result. So this is what I did right before I started on that first one. So when I walked into this, No Windows. I don't want to open this. Fuck off. Holding down this key is going to cause Windows to just start getting upset at me. Um, anyways, so obviously I was removing a watermark. I was redoing the glow. I was redoing the spell effects. I wanted to finish the wing that was grayed out, but the perspective was too fucked up for me. My skills aren't enough that I can actually finish drawing that kind of an image. So I couldn't really finish that part. But there's a lot of things I did do. Basically, because this image is so compressed, because a lot of these people that are really good artists don't actually understand the fundamentals of how computers work, like graphic settings for posting images. So they use like the lowest compression quality JPEG, which is basically what this is. It's absolutely horrendous. So I have to, like, when you going down to the pixel level trying to make this transparent, you kind of have to make educated guesses what is actually belonging to the source image and then what isn't. And then sometimes you got to redraw parts of it along the way, which if you look very closely, flipping between the two of those images, you're going to see lots of small changes I have made. But the one above is different. So the dragon took me about 8 hours, 8 or 10 hours total. So that's actually not that long for me. For an image of that complexity a couple months ago, that would have taken me a week. So I've gotten a little bit faster just because of the way I change my priorities and stuff. So one of the things that really bothers me about this image is actually the tail where I removed the watermark. There was an older version of that with the tail that the lines were too straight, and when I flipped between them, the straightness of the lines really bothered me. But I had a very hard time like figuring out where I needed the lighting to go. It's something I may revisit in the future, but I forced myself to stop after a secondary revision where I straightened out the lines because when I drop this down to the resolution it's in within Roll20, you don't really see it that much. But when we go to the Unreal 4 client where I'm going to be using higher resolution images, then maybe I want to come back and adjust stuff like that when I have a little bit more experience. But it's possible for me to fix that right now. It's possible for me to go in and fix some of the lines and stuff like that. But because I don't really know what I'm doing, it basically amounts to a lot of guesswork. And that guesswork is where all the time goes. I have found with this stuff when I don't really know what I'm doing, and this comes to making maps as well, that if I don't know what I'm doing, I spend a very large amount of time basically. I like to think of it as like exploratory fucking around, which is just changing stuff and just hoping I basically land in the right spot. And this can be useful to some extent because you can learn some interesting things about it, which is something I am going to talk about. But what I'm also going to talk about is just how much time that can consume, and you got to always be conscious of what it is you're doing and how much time you're spending on it. And I don't recommend people starting or being in depth in projects to give a shit about how much time takes. But if you've got other stuff to do, it helps to go between them because you need to sort of give yourself a break and then reapproach things from the ground up because you're actually going to start missing details elsewhere. So with an image like this that's like somewhat complex, there's a lot of things to fix on it. Things like the fire and the glow and stuff like that. This is completely unrelated to the tail. And then there's the shadow on top of it, which the perspective really isn't that great. And then at the top of the food chain is that unfinished wing that the original artist left incomplete. So, most of those I can fix, some of those I can't fix. So when I started this, I first made it transparent and then I tried to fix the wing. And when I discovered I couldn't really like figure out how the lines work, I just basically gave up on it. Because while it's true I might be able to fuck around enough to finish it, I had already wasted like an hour on it. So I have kind of like a time limit, like a soft time limit. If I start getting really tired of something, I just stop and move on to something else. So I'm usually multitasking something alongside these images, like editing music. I do a lot of editing and remixing of music and stuff like that for D&D as well. Or working on Roll20 itself, or working on the maps in Unreal 4 or something equivalent. So if it gets to the point where I find that I'm start switching off of this more often than not because I'm getting frustrated, then that means it's time to change the workload. One of the most important things that you're working on with your project is your own sanity, your own ability. You have a resource. It's called you. And
You.
you will expend, even if you're doing something that, and honestly, in my case, even especially if you're doing something you're fairly comfortable with, if it's still really time consuming, you will burn yourself out very easily. And it gets harder and harder and harder to pull yourself to do things that are either more explorative and unknown or just more menial. So you've really got to balance your workload a lot.
Yeah, I would say that that's a fair assessment. I mean, looking at this, it seems like you probably, if I had to guess, anyways, you were trying to clean up the fire and then just decided to make a new one because
Yeah.
cleaning it up was taking too much time.
Yeah. So in the original Fire, you can tell that the JPEG compression has hit it very, very hard. And it's true I could clean it up, but it would take me a very long time. I'm better off just looking on Yandex for another fire swirl and then just throwing it in there and making a secondary layer and throwing a glow on there. I can just, fix up later on if I really want to change it much. But the original was basically like it's one of those things that is just more trouble than it's worth. Like sometimes you're like this is a problem you're going to see a lot with programming, especially with Blizzard and stuff like that. Well, is over-engineered solutions where you try to boilerplate and fuck around with something that is basically just a lost cause, and it's just less effort just to redo it and do it from the right way. Blizzard Entertainment made an official statement. I believe it was Schaefer himself who stated this during Diablo 2, a release interview that said that they knew their tools were bad and their tools were costing them development time, but they were impatient and forged on ahead, thinking they could finish the project with the inefficient tools rather than just fixing up the tools. And their own developer basically said this was a bad idea and we should have redone the tools, but they didn't. They actually did not even have the ability to preview their assets outside of the game. And this is something that is pre-rendered. So you know that whatever tools they were using were heaping piles of shit. And that is something that has plagued Blizzard all the way to present day, where, again, with StarCraft 2, you cannot preview stuff outside of the editor at all. You cannot look at particles or anything outside of the editor. You have to encode everything, encode all the textures and everything like that, and pass them to the editor. And you can cache some stuff, but it still takes a long time. It is a far cry from actual professional tool sets, like, say, for example, Unreal, or even Sins of a Solar Empire that let you preview your particle effects while you're working on them. So
Yeah, so
you always gotta think about things.
rather than fucking rebuilding the editor in such a way that it would allow something like that to be
Yeah.
faster at the very least, or developing a tool that would preview it beforehand, they just did that and stuck with it.
Yep.
Same thing for Diablo 2, like you
even
mentioned.
stuff like PhysX has I think it was PhysX. PhysX or Reactor have a picture-in-picture preview window in 3ds Max for showing you how the system works before you go through, however long to actually render your whole scene. So
Seems like a very basic
certainly not too
feature
much
that
to
was
ask of
just
Blizzard.
missing then, yeah.
Yep. But no, lazy. So obviously, going back to that original image, I'm gonna try jog through this pretty quickly because I don't actually. I have a video recording for this. I will release in some time. So I didn't just want to do some changes to this. I wanted to change the colors and stuff like that. So I had another guy with me making some quick changes, and I'm just gonna send you the first example. So the first example, I was trying to make everything gold, and this is just like a basic hue shift and some corrections. And didn't really care for it because it was more yellow than gold, and then some spots were bright red. Basically, when you do just a raw hue shift, even if you do manual configurations in Photoshop, this is basically what you're going to get. So I did some corrections to it in Photoshop. I ended up with this version, which was more gold, but all other parts started to get fucked up. So long story short, I spent probably about 4 or 5 days fucking around with hue shifts off and on between other work before I started to get really, really fed up. And then this was consuming a lot of time to try to get something because I also wanted the eyes to be blue. But when we look at the small image sizes, the gold and the blue were clashing a lot. So colors were hanging me up. I'm really indecisive about colors. Basically, if something doesn't look just right to me, I'm going to scrap it and restart from scratch. And that was basically what was happening here over and over and over and over and over and over again. But I was realizing that I couldn't accomplish what I wanted with simple tools. I couldn't just do hue shifts on the entire image and get exactly what I wanted. Furthermore, I was on the fence about a lot of the effects and clothing and stuff like that I wanted to make some changes to. And there was other sort of like little minor things that I wanted to adjust as well. So, but now I had already consumed almost a week of time on one thing that I hadn't even like gotten anywhere with. I basically was still at ground zero, kind of like just scratching my head about what to do. So I tried all sorts of different things like desaturating it and stuff like that. And meanwhile, time was ticking on. And while this wasn't something I needed right away, it was something that was now consuming a large amount of time and thought energy that was better invested elsewhere in the project. So the net of things is that let me take a look at my images here. Okay, so I'm gonna break this down. So So this is the copy, and again, I do not have work in progress images in this. It's in a video right now, so I can't show you some of that, but I can show you. Okay, so this here. All right, so this is an intermediary image. So if you look between the second last and the last one I have sent, you are going to notice a very large amount of difference. So this is actually the single most complicated thing I have ever done in regards to graphics. It's more complicated than anything I've ever done in regards to 3D, that's for sure, because 3D is just box modeling. So it's very superficially simple, but basically I went back to the source. I scrapped all the recolors we did. But if you look at this compared to that one, I have changed a lot of stuff, redone a lot of things, redrawn a lot of things. All the original problems for the other one are gone. And we are left with a fairly clean image. So what I had to do for that is I actually had to redraw huge chunks of it. I went everything through it pixel by pixel by pixel with clone brush and manually drawing stuff and just sort of like guesstimating based on the source of what things would actually look like. But now we're going to get to the part where I actually end up burning a lot of time again. So this is the current final version that I am sending right now. So the biggest change between this and the last one, other than the minor changes, is actually going to be the horns. So you will probably notice I have dramatically changed the horns, and now they're actually more consistently lit, and they look more metallic.
Yeah.
And some of the other colors and stuff like that, I need to. I think that's actually, is that an old one? Did I? No. Yeah, that is the right one. Okay, so obviously a lot of colors and stuff are fixed. I avoided fucking up everything. So basically, what I went through to do this is pixel by pixel separating the skin from everything else, pixel by pixel adjusting all the colors and the clothing, removing the glows and stuff like that, and then pixel by pixel redrawing about 80% of the horns. And I had no idea what it was doing. I walked in here completely fucking blind. I knew I had to make the horns metallic because I needed them to be golden metallic like the rest of the appearance. I didn't know how to do that. I just started fucking around with brushes, a soften brush and a blur brush and like a smear brush. And I just went back and forth and back and forth. For that took the horns in total took about 6 to 7 hours. So that was not a very efficient use of my time.
Right.
But it was a process in which I was learning. And there was a lot of periods during that I just didn't know what I was doing. And I was just basically like getting absolutely nowhere. So I had to acknowledge when I was doing that and then take breaks. Because I would basically brick wall, especially on the right horn was the second one that I did. The left horn, I got kind of lucky with it in some parts where it just sort of looked metallic when you zoomed out. And I was like, I don't know how that happened. I'm going to hope I can replicate it. I couldn't replicate it. I could not replicate it. And I was getting so fucking frustrated because the hours were just pissing on by. I basically started on it at 12 and then it was like past supper time and I was starting to get tired and I was starting to get really angry and I was like, why is this not going anywhere? You have to stop. Just stop and then distance yourself from something, distract your mind, and then come back and look over at the big picture again. And I realized, well, obviously metallic is somewhat reflective. So rather than just fucking around, smearing stuff around on the other horn and hoping to get lucky, I've got to actually put a strategy into this. I've actually got to figure out what I'm doing. So that's when I started doing stuff like, okay, well, the hair is bright, so we need to reflect the hair onto the metal. And then go from there with our color intensity and try to replicate the color intensity based on the angles for the other horn. And then in half an hour, I was finished. So, um, it like you have to acknowledge it when you're in a state like that, and it's easier when you have more familiarity with what it is you're doing and you have sort of like a gauge of how well you work with stuff. But it's also not so easy because I think a lot of the problems a lot of people who aren't very experienced at working on projects are going to get into, and I've seen this with people who even work like years and years and years and years or something, is they don't understand how their own time management works. And it's always going to change. It's always going to be different. You're never going to spend precisely 1 hour on the same kind of scale of something that you did before. You know, like the models and the tokens and the edits and stuff that I do, they vary all over the place. Some of the more complicated stuff was like 2 hours of work. Some of them were 7 days of work. And it's just because sometimes I have a lot of problems with stuff. Like certain angles are harder for me to draw because my hands hurt so much from arthritis that I have to take constant breaks whenever I'm doing any like pinpoint precision stuff, especially because of my posture. So even though if an image is not very complicated, if it's causing me a lot of physical pain, I have to keep stopping anyways. So there's some angles and stuff are just really awkward for me to work with. I've tried to use a drawing tablet and it actually made things worse because I can't draw in a straight line. So Yeah, there's a lot of problems. So obviously, this is in some ways a little bit different than what a lot of people are looking at with mods and stuff. But at the same time, it's very similar. This is very, very similar kind of stuff to what I was doing when I was doing 3D modeling. Is I have a OCD for straightness. Not just, non-Californian, don't pause me, daddy, but also alignment of edges in 3ds Max for models. When you look at any of the models I made for Retribution, I can guarantee you that for the vast majority of them, 25% of the time that went into them went into aligning edges so they were perfectly straight. Perfectly straight. Not just because it would cause smoothing edges, but because when I see anything that is off alignment, even by just a couple pixels, it drives me fucking crazy. So I can't get rid of the OCD. It's something that always bothers me, and it's always going to bother me, and when I see it, I have to fix it. So in order to make sure it doesn't consume more time than necessary, I have to develop strategies to do it faster and more efficiently. Which means I had to rebind hotkeys for make plenaire and stuff like that, so I could do my job faster and more efficiently. If you're looking at something that looks to consume a lot of time, you always got to ask yourself, how can I make this faster and more efficient for me? How can I make my pipeline faster? How can I automate parts of this? And that's going to be your biggest problem with stuff like StarCraft 2, because StarCraft 2 by design is the most inefficient, slowest way you possibly can do anything. Blizzard's gone out of their way to make the editor as user unfriendly as possible. Your pipeline's going to suck. And that's why large scale projects are going to suck, which means your time management is all the more important.
So what it seems like, as I pull those images out, was able to show them on the screen while you were talking about them. The big takeaway here is that you got to know what your skill set is, and then you got to plan around whatever you don't have as a strength, and probably plan around your strengths as well. But like, especially what's going to cost you is, misallocating your time to try and like brute force your way through any weaknesses or gaps in your knowledge or gaps in your skill set. And I think that's a fair point just to make out the gate. And the reason why we're going in so hard on the idea of tweaking your process is actually mostly because that, at least as far as I'm concerned, is the vast majority of what you're going to be working with. Is you're going to be editing your process, trying to make it so that you're looking as solid as possible on a technical level with your tools, and you've eked out whatever you need to eke out when it comes to your pipeline, and you're looking strong in that regard, so that you're not going to be reevaluating the entire way that you make content in the middle of a large scale project, which is why I always encourage people to make small stuff before they try to make really long stuff. And even if they are going to make really large things, like even if that's going to be their first project or one of their first projects or whatever, even though I won't say, yeah, do that, I'm not going to encourage that. If they are dead set on doing that, they at least need to understand that it is going to take time, even if you do optimize your process for this sort of manner. So I guess the next thing that we can talk about a little bit is, as far as you've experienced. I mean, I know you've made quite a few different maps within SC2 to varying degrees of completion, as well as presumably Warcraft 3 as well. So is there anything more targeted that you can remember immediately regarding video game content that you've worked with? Maybe like some of the stuff from Apex J or something like that that's a little bit more recent that you've had to go through iterations for and try to focus on.
The AI.
All right, well, tell us a little bit about that.
AI. So obviously StarCraft 2 doesn't have an AI out of the gate, and nobody's tried to make an AI with it. Nobody's tried to make a build and destroy campaign with StarCraft 2 because there is no AI. So you need an AI. But you can't work with triggers because they're slow as fuck. But you don't have source access either. So you're stuck with re-implementing the melee system and learning that. Well, let's just say I'd be a lot further along if I didn't make the mistake of relying on people like Jedmas who are all bark and no bite whatsoever. Saying they would do this or that and they could do this or that, and I'll always be scratching my head thinking, isn't this workload too much for you because you're already struggling to come up with any results at all? And of course, they would not come up with any results at all. So it would fall down to me and a guy who has 2 weeks of experience with the game, who then managed to get 2 weeks to turn up an AI within 2 weeks. That was more functional than anything Jade Strike could have hoped to make, or anybody else in StarCraft 2's community for that matter. But now you've got the the problem of performance and stuff like that. So StarCraft 2's melee AI loops set stock every tick, as far as I can tell. That's kind of performance intensive. In fact, if you start up a game of StarCraft 2 right now, after hammering the add computer player button and watching your game come to a screeching halt, because I'm sure it still does that,
Yep.
you'll find that the melee AI will actually cripple even the most advanced computers within a few minutes. Because Blizzard is very good at making games. Very, very good. Yes, very good games. Very, very well programmed. Totally not cobbled together middleware. Fun fact, the AI references Andy Bond, aka King Arthur by name, who never actually produced a stable program in his entire life, but got hired on as a lead programmer for Blizzard Entertainment anyways.
Here, I got a fun fact for you. So Alexander was in the Discord server at some point mentioning recently that he can't play SC2 Melee against computers because of that same issue that you were talking about. But he plays the
Yep.
campaigns just fine. It's almost like there's no
Yep.
AI there.
Yep, that's precisely why. That is precisely why, because the campaign doesn't use AI. It doesn't even have access to the same functions Melee does.
Right.
There's a reason why you can't get the AI to actually defend itself through triggers, unless you're calling Melee stuff to begin with. It's because the defense behavior is actually part of their wave behavior, which is integrated into the Melee AI. I also would doubt, I haven't tested it extensively in later versions of Legacy of the Void, but at least for Heat of the Swarm, they never actually updated the AI to use the campaign units at all. So, of course, I've made demonstrations in the past that demonstrated their effective counter system. Basically, Blizzard over-engineer the AI. They try to make it behave like a player, simulating mouse clicks and all this other needless shit for some reason, and trying to counter people. But the net result is they build roaches to counter void rays. They destroy performance, and that's actually it. That's actually it.
Yeah.
So
If you ever have
wanted to make it
attacked
for a campaign,
if you ever attack an AI in Melee, you go to their worker line and all their probes start locking up your fucking CPU because they're spinning back and forth. You'll know what we're talking
yeah,
about.
they removed APM spam from the APM readout, so it's harder to see, but they're still doing it. They are still doing it. They haven't touched AI since alpha. But now you have to turn that into a campaign AI, which means having it be map specific and player specific, which we did through global integers, and then actually have it work. But we revisited Apex through years of time, in part because of projects like Retribution coming up, in parts because of the disasters of 2014, and then in parts because of disasters and D&D and stuff like that. It's been revisited time and time again, each and every now and then, coming a little bit closer to understanding just how bad Blizzard actually is at making anything. So I invest a lot of time into testing. Testing. The reason why I know so much about Brood War, even though I was working with SEAI Edit, is because I tested every single little change for upwards of hundreds of thousands of man hours. There is one thing I did in Brood War, and that is unit test the fuck out of everything for AI and iScript and everything like that. So I had this innate understanding of how the game actually works underneath the hood. At least as far as our tools were capable of interacting with it. But you walk into StarCraft 2, you don't got any of that. If you have an innate understanding of Warcraft 3, that'll help you out, because StarCraft 2 is just Warcraft 3's engine with some more middleware taped on. But the AI is even more fucked up than in Warcraft 3. The set stock system is all completely host. So the looping behavior actually causes the AI to ignore certain commands. I have a lot of problems with the AI building Queen's Nest and Fester Pit, Greater Spire, stuff like that, some custom buildings. Once we got rid of the looping behavior, that mysteriously fixed itself. Before then, I had spent 2 weeks trying to fix the Zerg alone. But they still wouldn't build butter, of all things, so I'm not really sure about that. Like, you tell them they build 200 butter, they build 1. So something's fucked up going on.
Nice.
So, one of the things I want to do, this is a saga that has not ended. One of the things I want to do is switch everything to build commands, like in Warcraft 3. Looking at Warcraft 3's scripts, it's obvious that they're basically exactly the same thing, just with some different names in the syntax. So I'm wondering if I can change them back into build and just ignore stock entirely, and if that would fix some behavior or not.
I would probably turn it back into a state machine, but maybe it
I
would
mean, it
still
already
work.
is a state machine. That is what stock is. Stock is a state machine. It's just, I'm not entirely sure how it works internally, but it doesn't work properly at all to begin with. So
No, it looked like it was building more than or handling more than one request at once sometimes, and sometimes irrespective of which ways that you were handing, like
if
what
you
priorities
spam
are.
it, then it
Oh,
will,
okay.
because basically what happens is it completes a request, it starts a new one. But if you spam it, it checks the requirements more for when they fire things off. which works sometimes and doesn't work in others. So it's very
It's not very
fucked.
consistent by the
Yeah,
sound of it,
it's
anyway.
very fucked. So I don't know, like this is unexplored territory. We're the only people who have ever tried to do this, other than maybe Green Tea. But Green Tea was basically just a mod of the existing Melee AI that didn't actually try to do anything interesting with it. They managed to make it perform even worse, which I suppose is some kind of accomplishment. But no, you're entering a completely unknown territory, and now you need to unit test every change you make in unexplored territory. You're gonna waste so much fucking time, and that's what I did because I didn't understand what was going on. And this is an arena where I don't have all the answers. I can't look at it and be like, I am wasting my time. Because that's what, like, there are some things you can only just throw time at to really understand, even like get a grip of what's even going on. But when you know that there's some kind of overarching problem to something and you're trying to solve things underneath the shadow of that problem, like the looping set stock, you have to kind of like just bite the bullet and not avoid the greater sum of the work. Like that's kind of one of why I want to try switching things to build commands as opposed to stock, because I have a feeling a lot of the existing issues with AI is a result of stock. Like expanding, they do not like building structures expansions at all. I wanted them to build production structures and defenses at expansions, but holy fuck, if you can get them to do it in any timely manner, they might build like one or two turrets over the course of like 10 minutes. It's really fucked up. That's like the biggest problem with AI right now. I have everything else working fairly well, but that doesn't behave. So I don't know why.
And that's
So
definitely
maybe,
important.
yeah. So maybe if I stuff build commands into that, I don't know. But that's something that needs to be tested. But there's a lot of stuff like this I couldn't test while we were looping set stock because the performance is so bad. Like particles, for example, a lot of my particles would not actually appear in the game, and that was because the performance was so bad with the AI that it was actually skipping the keyframes that the particles had spawn animations in. So they just were not actually appearing because the game it wasn't even seeing the keyframes to render them to begin with. So there was a lot of time wasted on that.
That seems
So I
so
definitely
insane to
agree
me
with
that
them.
the game just skips
Yep.
keyframes because of performance.
Yep. It's horrible. StarCraft 2's performance is just so dreadfully bad. Just so dreadfully bad. I'm on a Ryzen 7. The AI still lags for me, even in the most efficient setup that we have. I'm sure if I run the default AI, it'll be no different than before. And this is a system that is actually 10 times faster than my last i7 920. I have done extensive testing with encode speeds and render speeds. It is literally on average 10 times faster, if not more so. StarCraft 2 still performs just as garbage. It's bad. But that's what you got to deal with. So I definitely agree with taking things piecemeal, taking it one objective at a time. When I if or when I go back into StarCraft 2, I'm really on the fence because right now the editor crashes if I preview a string. So that's the first thing I got into is trying to edit some strings. It just immediately crashed on me. I lost all my work, and I was like, "Huh, this is going to be a long couple years of working on this project if I can't even preview strings without the editor crashing. What else is fucked up?"
Yeah, and
So,
that's definitely new, you would guess. I'm assuming you previewed
yeah.
strings before without
Well,
that
before if you
same.
previewed models, it would crash all the time.
Oh, okay.
So it's not new. It's just a different bug of the same thing. Like
Six in one, half a
when
dozen
you're
in the other, yeah.
when you are dealing with untested prototype tools and you stand to have really awkward fucking pipelines like Retribution, you had to use a modeling program called Soft Image XSI, which was basically like advanced Blender, but you couldn't click on any of the portraits or not viewports. Otherwise, it would crash. Like that was a new bug that just cropped out of nowhere for no reason at all. Halfway through Retribution's production line, I could not click on anything. I had to use arrow keys exclusively for navigating this awful slow as fuck Python interface to do stuff with the models that are all XSI specific because it's its own special little program that has to have its own special little setup. Otherwise, everything's fucked up. So that consumes like a needless like 5 to 10 minutes for every single time I want to make any kind of update or change to a model. So like you need like this is the stuff you don't learn about when you hear about people making mods. People don't talk about this stuff because most people don't actually get into making real content. All of StarCraft 2 is at best kit bashes in Blender, just garbage. Most people don't even understand how the materials even work. Most people have never touched particle effects except for Delphinium. Most people don't even understand the basics of specularity configuration. Everything is always so slimy, much less anything that actually involves you getting into things. Like, one of the things I want to test out is having a battleship with a bunch of innately functional turrets like the siege tank. I don't actually know if that's going to work because I've never seen it in the game before. In theory, it should work, but this is Blizzard. A lot of stuff that should work in theory does not. It needs to be tested. It needs to be actually done and set up. And I don't even know how to properly set that up right now. So, having like take steps to establish your pipeline, get a feel for what it's going to be like, because this is the stuff you don't hear about until you're already in it and you realize how bad it's actually going to be. So, uh, like with the AI and stuff like that, um, the way I would word it is test the flexibility. So I always, when I do any kind of, like, when I scout out for a project like Apex, the first thing I ask myself is this possible? Is that possible? How does this perform? How does that perform? So I try to make something that's called a concept. And a concept is like a non-committal mod build where I have increased unit counts or make basic changes to the AI to make them do more stuff or whatever. Something that doesn't take me a long time to do, but gives me like an idea in my head of the reflection of what it is that's actually going to perform like. So with StarCraft 2, I wanted to know how it could handle big meshes. So I had that Onslaught Juggernaut that I used in StarCraft 1, but with actual textures from Sergeant HK. So that thing had about 10 or so 4K textures. The model was about 130K triangles. One of the first things I did when Intoxicated released his tools back in Wings of Liberty is I stuck dozens of those into a single map to see what it performed like, because I didn't know. So I have to see. I have to see for myself. I can't trust other people's words for this. I gotta see for myself. 3 dozen of those things dropped me by 1 FPS. I deduced I could have any amount of whatever the fuck I want for polycount in StarCraft 2. So that was never an issue for performance to this day. Polycounts have never been an issue for performance in that game. And that was for, what today would be considered like, you know, beyond low end. Like that's over 10 years old hardware at this point. And it handled that stuff fine in StarCraft 2. It was never an issue. It was literally 3 million something plus polygons on the screen. No issues whatsoever. Huge textures, stuff like that. And that was on a shitty exporter too. The exporter took upwards of 5 hours to export a non-animated model, as opposed to Blizzard's, which is like 5 seconds. So, you got to do tests like that so you don't surprise yourself. Like, if you are making a StarCraft 2 project and you want to have build and destroy, you've got to do the AI work yourself. And you should figure out how you're going to do that before you've created your races, before you've created your models, before you've done your maps. Most of the maps I've done for StarCraft 2, they're all concepts. They look detailed because I threw in basic doodads. That's my idea of concept detail. If I want high detail, that means making my own doodads and exporting and converting and remastering my own stuff. And I've done some of that, but I haven't gotten invested into it because I don't want to invest however many weeks, months it takes to building my own tile sets and stuff, just to find out that the AI is not going to perform that well, or I can't fix stuff like the expansions, or the editor is going to make me too frustrated. You have to walk into things with a certain expectation. You have to manage your expectations and expect to be able to be flexible with it. And at the same time, you need to have some kind of an idea of what it is you're actually looking at. And then you have to accept that if you make a projection based on your time, triple that time. That's probably going to be your real turnout.
Yeah,
And
it's at
that's if
least
you're
a closer assessment. So I guess
because
we can.
everything takes time.
Yeah, for sure. Time is a big thing because, I mean, obviously it's pretty much our most valuable resource, as they say. And it is one of those things that gets away from you, gets lost. You like you said, the hours just piss on by. You don't really see it happening, feel it happening until you look back and you realize, I've been working on this project for a year, or I've been working on it for 6 months. And then you start to get a little, maybe anxious. Anxiety starts to build. You're like, man, I really want to finish this soon so I can say I'm done. And that's where I think I've had the most issues in the past is I would sooner cancel a project than to see it through for longer than a certain amount of time, just because of whatever internal shit. It wasn't explicitly this is taking too much time, but after a certain point, I realized I was basically feeling like I was getting diminishing returns, even if the progress was increasing or the project was progressing in some way. I would still feel like the project was a waste of my time because it had been 6 months, a year, whatever, and there was still no completed project, nothing even really in sight. So I guess that was before I learned to properly set stuff up. But one of the things I've realized recently is it actually doesn't take me too long to make a map. It takes me a lot longer to conceive of all of these new game state changes that I've been doing for Hydra and to help implement them. Since I do have help with that, it's much less time than it would be otherwise. But to get them implemented in the first place, it takes a lot longer to build an environment for like basically a new framework. Like we were talking about ARPG frameworks and MOBA frameworks and whatever in the previous podcast. It takes a lot longer for you to do risk assessment, like you were talking about, to figure out if it's even possible to do that stuff with concept maps, to do the unit testing required, and then to actually get it done than it does to just make a map. And so I know there's a lot of people who are making stuff, and maybe it's radically different than standard StarCraft. Maybe it's very similar to standard StarCraft. Maybe it's something in a Doom or something in a completely different engine. But for sure, one of the biggest takeaways that I think anybody can get from a podcast like this, a topic like this, is you don't really want to be trying to gun for a release date. Although obviously, if you're feeling anxious about it, there's a couple of things that you can do to sort of relieve that tension. And I don't know how much you will agree with this one, Mesk, but something that I've found helps me quite a bit for projects like Hydra, at least, is like I'll never release an early access version or whatever of my own single player content, because that to me is a bit more of an intimate story, a bit more personal, and it involves the idea that if you're playing it, it's released publicly and it's finished and not a beta. It's expressly meant to be finished content that you're playing, not some hack job unfinished beta. But for Hydra, where it's meant to be more gameplay oriented than a holistic project, and obviously, gameplay is a huge part of any gaming project, any interactive medium. But Hydra is basically an experiment unto itself, a tech demo unto itself, until I finish it, and even then, it's likely to still be a tech demo in some way, shape, or form. And so I have less sort of qualms about showing that stuff off beforehand. And I guess like the closest thing that you've probably ever come into contact with, or at least recently, would be like showing versions of your D&D maps or assets or something like that before they were expressly done, to get some ideas or to just sort of just to show your progress in the current moment. And I don't know if you, like I said, I don't know if you have any particular thoughts pointed in any one direction about this particular idea, but for me, it seems like it's a good way to spread word of mouth if that's something that you're interested in, or at the very least, just to sort of crowdsource that feedback and get some people whose standards you trust to engage in that content before it's quite finished, before you've sort of polished it all up, to maybe help you check yourself if you have been stressing about time and you have been spending a lot of time on one thing. Just see what other people have to say about it, and maybe that will help you sort of point you in the right direction for whatever remaining time you're willing to allot on that particular asset or map or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So in regards to D&D, since a lot of this content I can't show the players at all, I can't consult people that I might normally consult, but I don't even usually consult anybody anyways. There is two people, a Swedish man and a Texan man, that I occasionally consult. For example, when I was working on this graphic, just because sometimes I find typing out what I'm working on to someone else, even if they're not involved in it, even if their response is just like 2 words and that's it, is like sometimes it helps me just reflect on my own, like, because again, you get stuck into something, you get stuck in an OCD, you lose sight of stuff. It's just one of the part of the process for kind of like detaching myself and taking a moment to look outside and see the big picture again. But in regards to stuff like StarCraft 2 and stuff, no, I don't release betas anymore. I haven't done that kind of thing since 2003, 2004. Yeah, I think that's the last time I really was into the thing of releasing betas, because I always found they killed momentum a lot. They killed energy a lot. And I mean, and back then I was really big on the whole, getting publicity thing too. I dropped that in like 2005 when I hit puberty, and I was like, oh, this is really dumb. I shouldn't be doing this because this is so foolish. This is a dead fucking game. Why am I worried about what other people think about something? I haven't even finished it yet. So, but there is still something that you need to sort of do to kind of like maintain your sanity. So, Retribution's a better example for this than Apex. Retribution is not something you play. So you can't like sit down and play a game and reflect on it and that. You have to watch it and record it and make videos. So I have those Retribution test videos on my site. There's about 19 of them in total. Those are like what you would consider a beta release, except they were released to one person, just one person. At the time, that was Killer 11, and maybe one or two other internal viewers at the time. I can't really remember, but it was something that I never saw public eyes until I'd canceled the project. And the thing is I don't get anything from publicity. I don't get anything from exposure to public. If I actually manage to make a StarCraft 2 project of some scale, any scale, I will never release it to the public. It will be handed on a peer-to-peer basis, and that will be it. And because I just don't draw substance from people that I don't know and engage with. But there are people I do know and engage with that sometimes I do need their view on something. And like for example, there was a World of Warcraft Side A segment 14 that I released a while ago, and that got held up for a long time because that's when I got the new microphone, and the audio was overdriven to fuck. And I spent a very, very long time fucking around with the audio to the point that was driving me insane, and I wasn't sure if like I was trying to process this 3 hour, about 10 hour recordings worth of video. I couldn't just redo it. Like I couldn't just re-record this shit because you don't want to lose your genuine expression and everything else in it. It's just not good. You don't want to cast over it either for the same reason.
Right.
So I'm trying to post process it, but it gets to the point where I just lose sight of what it is I'm doing, and I need some kind of outside opinion. So thankfully, I know two people who are super experienced, professionally experienced in dealing with audio, and I can consult them and have them view this entire thing, this entire 3 hour long video, and tell me if that's okay. So that's like a rare instance that I might consult people is when I specifically run into some kind of problem that I can't really proceed, but there is definitely an issue in a long project like Retribution started in 2008. 2008, I was still working on it a lot at the beginning of 2014. Of course, I went through many different iterations. It originated in Homeworld 2, it went Supreme Commander, it went to Sins of a Solar Empire, was first a mod, then a movie, and went through several different failures and iterations until finally at the end of 2014, it turned into a radio play of all things, a 3 hour long radio play. And you get conscious of that time, even if you're not really big on the whole releasing thing. And like I've had a grand total of like 6 people talk to me about that radio play, and that was a project that was like almost 8 years in the making. And like some people will think of that as a waste. A lot of people have said that I should try to get attention for something like this because is large, but I don't. But along the way, you kind of do feel that. You still feel that. Even if you don't really care about that stuff, you still kind of feel about it because you start wondering, like, how long is this going to take? What is it for? Etc. You start asking yourself a lot of really hard questions. But, and this was at the time where I'm like fighting for the life of my cat. I'm fighting for, a roof over my head. Everything is basically burning all around me. Like the "this is fine" image,
Right.
but not very fine at all. Actually, a state of perpetual panic. And you start thinking, I have invested so much of my life into this project that is actually going to die and going to get turned into a fucking audio only project. And literally all the work that I had done prior to the 2 months I put in that radio project, right out the window, gone forever. Absolutely useless. Everything I ever did in Homeworld 2, Supreme Commander, Sins of a Solar Empire, all the models, all the textures, all the particle effects, literally every single thing I did except for the base script I wrote is just thrown out. Just it can't be used for anything. It doesn't fit anything. It won't work for anything because it was all built for Sins of a Solar Empire. It literally is all worthless. It's just all thrown out. Just completely thrown out. And that can bother you. And it may not seem relevant, but yeah, a lot of people who are working in projects are actually going to have to throw out a lot of work. Or they're going to reach a crossroads where they're going to be, again, like I said, trying to cling to something they need to let go of and redo or abandon entirely. It's called feature creep in some respects. And you have to recognize that as well. And you have to suck it up and think, okay, I got to throw this out and rework. like I said, when I was messing around with the colors for this image, I really didn't want to get into the whole process of, pixel by pixel editing this fucking thing and starting over after I'd already spent days getting into something, because I kept thinking, I'm better than that. I can figure out how to make these filters work. Well, you can't. You can't. You don't got those skills. You got to step back and accept you can't do it this way. You got to do it a better way. You got to do it a way that you can be confident it's going to make. Suck it up to experience, because you've got so much more to do before you're actually going to be done. So that was the time thing, where it was like, I'm conscious I've already spent a lot of time into something, so I'm going to spend more time on it. Because the way I turn that mentality into is, if I start thinking about something like, wow, I've spent months to years working on this, I think of it as, well, I've already spent months to years on this. Let's spend the months to years to get it done right.
Right.
To, justify the amount of time I've already put into it. If you start rushing it, you're invalidating everything you just did. Like, it makes no sense to rush something towards the ends. You gotta spend the same amount of time, the same amount of passion at the end as when you started. Otherwise, you're just being dishonest to yourself. You're doing a disservice to yourself.
Well, the counter argument to that would be that you're engaging in like the gambler's fallacy. Like, I've already spent this much money, and so just spend some more, and I'll get it all
back. But gambling
back.
is an uncertainty, though, right?
Right.
Like, with gambling, you're never certain you're actually going to finish. You just think, because I invested this much, that means I can complete if I invest this much more. That's the gotcha thing. That's the psychology of the gambler's fallacy. But when you're making a project, so long as you've got a lid on things like feature creep, so it's not like, well, I'm nearly complete, so I can add this, and you end up in this giant perpetual fucking chain.
Right.
As long as you got a lid on that, then you can afford to be confident and take things calmly and say, yes, I've got some polish I need to do. Let's actually sit back and do it. But not to the point that we waste another 5 months, chasing diminishing returns. You have to acknowledge when something is enough of a diminishing return, it's time to call it finished. Like, a lot of people, like someone who did a lot of D&D stuff would say that it's not worth it to edit the images at all, just to blindly crop them with a magic wand and be done with it. And then all of his stuff just looked really bad, enough to the point it detracted from everything. I was just like, well, that's unacceptable. But at the same time, when I look at these images, I'm not going to try to fix certain off-key color pixels or certain line art that's slightly out of balance, because it's going to take me so fucking long to get it to look perfect at 100% view, when these images are going to get dropped down anyways. But I want everything to be consistent. Consistency is the single most important thing for making any kind of content. If it's a map or a model or sounds or whatever, you're aiming not necessarily for perfection, but for consistent quality. If you aim for consistency, where everything looks like it fits together and everything looks like it belongs together, then you don't have to worry quite as much about small details between the lines that don't necessarily detract from that overall image.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like when we talk about how StarCraft 2, Warcraft 3, all these other games, especially the 3D titles that Blizzard has made, always look like shit. It's often because it's the disparity of styles and to some extent qualities in the images that you're seeing on screen, where it's like it's not just one aspect. Like, there might be one model in an area, or one texture in an area that looks fine by itself in a vacuum, but it's more about how it all comes together. And so that goes back directly to what we were talking about pretty much at the beginning, where we were talking about how don't obsess over small details on a single thing when it's a component of a larger scene. This is obviously very visual, but if you think about it like this, don't obsess over a single part of your single AI script when that's part of like a team of 4 and the other 3 aren't even made yet, and you're worrying about like some obscure thing that might happen in the future if the player does X or Y exactly. Or, don't obsess over some bug in a trigger when you haven't even triggered the rest of the map. This is like the first trigger. Stuff like this, where you're worrying about the quality of something when the rest of the scene is not even remotely close to up to par. And I guess in the Blizzard case, like, it's actually just laziness or whatever. But in this case, you're worried about time. And this could very easily happen in as much as it happens in a commercial product for completely unacceptable reasons. It could happen in a user-made product, a custom project, because not because of like maliciousness or laziness, but just because they were so focused on one thing, and that one thing was maybe done to some competent level, but at the expense of everything else. And of course, that's where you want to avoid dumping all of that time and energy into one thing, only to have the rest of the project held back because even that good thing that you did is held back because the rest of it is not complete. So hopefully that resonates with some people, because I'm sure that everybody who's listening to this now has had that happen to them at some point or another when they're working on something. And I think one of the other things that I would like to bring up in general is probably the fact that I guess the scale of your project in general will end up coming back to bite you in the ass if it's any large. But it's almost something you have to build into it. Like you were talking earlier about, you've got a time frame in mind. Now triple it, and maybe that's enough to cover the actual time for producing your content. And that's, of course, maybe that is factoring in real life stuff, but like that will be the time it takes you from now to the end of your development. And obviously not all of that time is going to be spent on development, because you got to work on like other stuff along the way. You got to, do your job, or you spend time with your family, or doing all this other real life shit that gets in the way of that. And necessarily so, of course, it's, just something that you've got to live with. We live in a society and all that stuff. So you got to get through that. But it's also because there's going to be so much shit. I like this analogy. I don't even really know exactly how to word it anymore, because it's been so long since I've even thought about it. But consider this, like you've got a progress bar, and that progress bar is invisible to you, and you think that when you hit a snag and you have to go back and rework something, you're not making progress because you're patching something up. But that is actually part of the development time of the project, is going back and fixing issues that you find. And so you are, that progress bar is going up, even if it's, you spending so much time on just the first, what in your head is like the first 10% of the project, and you're spending like what you thought was like going to be enough to make 30% of the project, or whatever the numbers ends up being. Like that is actually part of the project's development time. And that's where it comes back to like, dramatically increasing the amount of time that you think that you are going to need in order to produce your content. I know a couple of people here who are in the audience for these podcasts have already worked on content for a long time, maybe one project for many, many years. And so they know this better than anybody, presumably. But it's interesting to conceive of it that way for me, because I always used to think like, man, I'm just anxious to get past this, bug fixing process, and this still happens to me some days, and I have to catch myself where I'll be like, feeling like there's, we're spending so much time working on this, that basically what feels like a sideshow to me, where it's fixing some issue that we didn't realize was there until just now, and we have to go back. But that is part of the whole process. That is just the same as, developing the concept in the first place and implementing the first version of it. Like it's still part of the process, is going back and fixing it so that it actually works. That's why you do your testing in the first place, so that that kind of thing doesn't show up when somebody else is playing it. And so that's definitely the case of, like, I'll give a personal example of where I definitely didn't do this. Back when I was still cucked and making content for Remastered, and Jay Barino was still playing it live on his stream, there was a particular point in the 2018 version of Hydra, which was on the Remastered patch, where in the NORAD 2 mission that I had remade to basically be like, instead of being slow and methodical like some of the other missions, where you were much more encouraged to try to end the game fast because you had an AI ally with a finite amount of resources that was stuck in an island getting fucked by Zerg 24/7, you had to save him before he died. And instead of Duke just being in the player's control, like he was an actual AI. So the premise of the mission was there, and it was fine, but there was a bug that I had never come into contact with in all of the testing that I had done, and rest assured, I did actually do testing, despite what you may believe if you know what I'm talking about, where the brown Zerg player would just throw like 6 Ultralisks at Duke in the first 6 minutes. And I had never seen that before, and people were like pinging me on Discord because I was asleep when this live stream was happening, and people were like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you do that? It's like, I didn't, what? And of course it never happened again, but it happened the first time they played it, it happened, and it never happened again. I was never able to reproduce it. And that's an example of like, sometimes that shit just happens. But that was also a project that was very rushed, that was released before it was done. And it was the second time I had done something like this, where IskatuMesk was released halfway through, because I was like, oh, I got the first 3 maps, and I got to do 3 or 4 more. And the number 3 actually had nothing to do with it. But it's just that I wanted to, I was very, very anxious in that case of not being able to finish a project. And I figured, well, if I release the first 3, then I'm on record. I have to fucking finish this now. So it was like a way to, basically, it was like a gambit for me to make sure that I finished the product. And finish it I did eventually. But I took that same process and used it for this project, which was, it was so morphed by the end, where there were so many extra features and like new versions of modding tools and plugins and stuff that came up that had nothing to do with the development of IskatuMesk. Like when IskatuMesk came into play, yeah, sure, there were some features in the final build that obviously weren't there in the first one, but it was nothing that was integral. It was just like aesthetic stuff. Whereas this is like changing the entire player colors of all the teams and like adding a bunch of new upgrades and stuff that weren't there for the beginning. And I realized very quickly that people who played it when it was released got a much shittier experience than people who played it like 6 months later when it was quote unquote done, or when more content was released anyways. And it's just like such a short-sighted approach. And so that was when I realized, well, I probably have what it takes to actually finish something without needing to do this silly gambit thing. So I probably won't do that anymore. And instead, for Hydra specifically, because it's such a volatile game state, I have no real issues with releasing those betas, like we talked about earlier, and letting everybody who wants to just like pop into the Discord server, grab the link, and play it, and jack off with their friends or whatever. But that's like it's so fucking like, at least that's advertised as a beta, whereas like I was sort of tacitly saying that yeah, this content should work fine. Of course, Duke stands to disagree for that. So
Yeah, like with the images and stuff like that, like I haven't even finished this graphic. I still got to add a shadow and maybe some glow and shine and stuff. I don't know if that version had. No, I don't think that version has the shine I was working on, but there's still some things I need to fix. But no, it's a learning experience. You have to look at it as a learning experience, and bug fixing comes to that. Like with the StarCraft 2 AI, if I ever actually get back into this, it means overcoming the data editor. And I'm really not confident about that because of all the issues I've had with it. And I'm even actually been looking at it in the last couple days, which is why I've encountered these crashes and stuff like that. And it's one of those things I don't really feel confident about. But that's why I'm tackling it first. That's why I'm looking at it first, because I've already gone through the process of doing particles for StarCraft 2. I already know the ins and outs of technical stuff for StarCraft 2 in ways that maybe only Definium even has any idea about. And that, he's like the only one. So I've a lot of confidence about like what if I can get something in 3ds Max and the way I need it, I can get into StarCraft 2. I can make it look good. I have pretty much like no doubts about that whatsoever. That's just how it is. So that's why I think of that last, because if I get to the point where I can put in my graphics and my sounds in StarCraft 2, as far as I'm concerned, the project is done. It's just a matter of just grinding through the time, and well, it may take a year. It's a year I can be confident about. So I try to tackle the non-confident stuff first, which is going to be things like problem bug testing and stuff like that. But at the same time, like sometimes you run into that, and it's not so easy to get through. Like the failed vertex checksum error I got a lot in Sins of a Solar Empire that turned out to be from metadata from 3ds Max that soft image XSI was for some reason hanging on to. I didn't know about the cause of that error until basically the end of the project. And what that meant is that I spent weeks per mesh remodeling it blindly, hoping that this strange checksum error would go away so that the mesh would convert and not have issues. So basically, if you saw that error, it was basically like the toll of death's bell for your sanity. You were about to spend at the very least like 5 to 6 hours blindly guessing what was actually wrong. But it turns out in the end, it was never actually anything to do with your mesh at all. But changing or remodeling or removing pieces of the mesh would sometimes cause the error to go away. So you just had to guess. But you were always actually in reality guessing wrong. You didn't have the information necessary. What you needed to do is export the model as OBJ and then re-import it. That shredded the metadata. You never saw the error ever again, no matter what mesh it was. But I didn't know that until the very end. So imagine how I felt. Because let's take, for example, the A9 Leviathan. That ship, I redid that ship about 3 times over, multiple days of man hours apiece, just trying to get rid of the failed vertex checksum error that I thought at the time was some piece of the model becoming corrupt somehow. It wasn't. It was metadata. And nothing to do with the mesh at all. But I didn't know that. So, that wasn't a learning experience. Other than that, Ironclad is full of fucking morons. And their fucking converter should have been dropping this useless data to begin with, not reading it and trying to interpret it as mesh data or whatever the fuck it was doing to produce this error to begin with. But that isn't useful information. I don't come out of that smarter. But the amount of time I invested into those models, it still made me a little bit more efficient in my modeling. I still learned a little bit. I've probably forgotten most of it today because I haven't touched 3ds Max for anything other than, dingling with stuff in StarCraft 2 since like fucking 2014. But I come back and I still have all those memories. I still remember rebuilding stuff all over the place, and I did improve those models. I can't use the models for anything, but I did improve them. So if I ever did get started in StarCraft 2 or whatever, it's still experience, and it's still there. I didn't really learn anything tangible. It was a dumb bug, and in resolving it, I got nothing out of it. But all the time I invested to get to that point still resulted in improving assets. There's still some kind of knowledge, some kind of, the hidden progress bar you've pushed forward in that regards. And for me, that's important because I have learning disabilities. I learn things very, very slowly. You wouldn't look at my meshes and think I have been doing 3D modeling since 2001. But I have been. That is how long I've been working with 3D. I still don't know how to UV map. I still don't know how to texture. I still don't know how to do organic meshes. I still don't know how to do high detail box mesh modeling or anything like that. All I know is little odds and ends of technical art stuff, things like making particles, little bits and odds and ends of box modeling edge flow and stuff like that. That's why when I was posting in Special Bus earlier, like, these are the first major kit bashes I made. I've been kit bashing for years, but none of them with something I was trying to do UV mapping and on top of it. That was the first time I was getting into that, was like 2016 or something like that for StarCraft 2. And those were my first like actual major kit bashes. And as far as I'm concerned, I have never seen a kit bash in StarCraft 2 that even comes close to that battlecruiser. It's simple, clean, it gets the job done. It fixes a lot of issues with the original ones. It's efficient, and it has functional guns and missile ports and all the other stuff you could possibly want. It's got custom animations and everything you could possibly want. It does precisely what a kit bash should do. So I'm pretty content about that. That's an accumulation of all the experience I had prior to walking into StarCraft 2 and saying I'm going to make a kit bash. All the experiences from all the way back when I was doing stuff that other people are doing in StarCraft 2 right now, which is just mashing pieces of shit on top of each other and calling it a model. I already know why that looks like trash. I already know why that's a bad strategy. I already know why I can't do that if I want to make something look good. That's what all my experiences taught me. I don't walk into this having a boatload, a library of assets I can just pull out of. I have to still make all my content, but at least I'm prepared with the confidence that I can at least like take a really, really strong swing at it, despite not being an artist, despite not knowing UV mapping. At least I know, what I can do. And so I know I can approach those things more easily. And that's as a result of all the trials, all the, what you could perceive as wasted time fucking around with Sins of a Solar Empire. All I got out of that was a radio play. The radio play took 2 months to make. The other 6 to 7 years, you don't see that. You don't see any of that in the final product. None of the graphics, none of that shit exists. It just ceases to exist, but it still is there in the form of experience.
Right. So you improved your process, which goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is that, I mean, I have this philosophy that really, even if you have a complete project and you put in a lot of effort to, like, after you learned whatever new skills you needed to learn or optimize your current path or get better techniques or whatever the fuck you needed to do in order to make that project that you didn't already possess beforehand. And even after you polish it and you clean it up and you release it, you may have made a decent project. You may have made an internally consistent project that, like you said, you're going after consistency. It makes sense. It's internally good. Everything's good about it. Like, for whatever better or worse the actual like objective caliber of the project is, you may have made something good. You may have made something bad. It doesn't really matter, because the key thing that you took away from it is the ability to make something even better next time, which is that process. You improved your process. So ideally, you should be taking everything as like a tech demo in a sense, but it's also like a way for you to master your skills, master your shaft, and ascend to your destiny. And that's where I think a lot of people trip up, because they're so focused on ideas and they're so focused on their concepts, and they want to do these ideas justice. And I understand that, because I have a lot of ideas too, and I think some of them are pretty good. But I also have the honesty I have the brutal truth, the brutal tooth to be honest with myself and say, ideas are not worth fucking anything. All that matters is your execution, which is why something like Bulletstorm can be sort of charming sometimes, even though it's a fucking boring ass concept. It has been done to death a million times. You just look at that and you're like, oh, well, at least they had decent voice acting. At least they had, whatever, okay gunplay and stuff. And it's probably the same way why people latch on to shit like Doom 2016, despite it being QTE ridden and horrible sound staging and everything else we've complained about in its own dedicated podcast, which you can go check out if you missed it, is that it had decent gunplay. And so nothing about Doom is original. Nothing about that conceptually or like in an idea sense for on a conceptual stage is good or like promising even, but that just demonstrates the point. Ideas aren't worth fucking anything. So rather than getting caught up on trying to make one project work, like, you know, investing 6 or 7 years like you were talking about, where it took you so long to get Retribution out the door and it didn't even look like anything what it was originally meant to be anyways. Because at the end of the day, as much as I'm sure it was annoying to realize in the moment, like the point isn't really to make a project. The point is to just become better at making projects. And at least when you're treating things in that way, you also sort of like you kneecap a lot of the necessary feelings that you have of angst and anxiety, because suddenly it's not about releasing this project. I mean, it'll be really nice when it is released, but it's not about that. It's about making something and then being able to say, well, I learned this from that, and I learned this from this process, and now I'm better at that. You know, I got my skills up, and I have more experience, and a bit more worldly, and now I can say that I'm, able to make something even better next time. Like, I don't know if this is actually true, but I have a feeling that when you're done with a project, you should be able to look back over it and immediately, without any delay, like you could have just finished, like press save document on the last map, or just done your last testing run to confirm that everything is good, and you're ready to put that out there and release it. You could be like rendering the trailer or making the release post or whatever the fuck you're doing. But you should probably be able to look back at your project and say, well, I could have done this different, that different. This is shitty. This is something that I'm going to improve next time I make something. Like, that should probably be the ideal sort of reaction to going back to your old content. Sure, you can mix in some pride for whatever you think is still good and still holds up. But there's probably something you learned along the way where at the end of it, you look back and you say, this is kind of shitty in some aspects. Here's some ways that I could definitely improve it. And then you could immediately start thinking about like what to do about that. And you've already kind of done it in a way. Like, you've already improved your process if you're able to go back and look at what you did earlier in that year or earlier in this project's development time and say like, yeah, now I don't have to worry about that issue anymore. It could even be something like a development story, like, oh yeah, my AI kept crashing me in this mission, and I found out it was because of this, and now I don't have to worry about that anymore because I won't make that mistake again. Like, there you go. You improved your process just by doing that small thing. So that was kind of all over the place, but presumably you've had your own experiences with stuff like that where, I mean, it sounds like Retribution was one, at least with retrospect, you can say, hey, even though you don't see anything related to Retribution anymore because it's just a radio play, you were still able to have that confidence as a result of that experience to go into something else, something new, and try to give it the good old American try, as you say in your Warcraft 3 playthrough.
No, it's like with StarCraft 2. I know that if I knew the data editor right now, I could make a build and destroy campaign at a level of quality that nobody who plays StarCraft 2 could even fathom. Because I know what the average content has been made for this game. I know what the quote unquote best content has been made for this game is like. And I know I can do better. I know I can do better audio. I know I can do better visuals. I know my writing is superior. I know my mission design is superior. I know everything is superior because I've already made all this stuff that I know what it's like. I already know how to go through the steps and process of improving things that don't meet that standards. I know how to assess things. I know I have the patience to go through all this stuff. But at the same time, it doesn't bother me if I don't do that. It doesn't really bother me too much if I get too frustrated at StarCraft 2's editor, I say it's not worth it and I don't commit to it. It would be really nice to build a project. It'd be really nice to vindicate those thoughts. It'd be really nice to actually put things to the test and show, not necessarily to others, but even just to myself, that I can do this. Because this was the thing about Retribution's audiobook. I didn't do it because I wanted the project to be finished. I did it because I was frustrated that I let it die. I told myself there has to be some way I can pull out of this and make something out of it. I didn't make it because Retribution has to live. I made it because we had just moved. Things were as bad as they had ever been. I was looking at complete financial disaster. And above all, this was on the tail end of Retribution dying at the beginning of the year. And that was still something that really made me bitter. So, in a way, to me, The radio play was more or less an act of bitterness. It was something that's saying that there has to be something I can do. I know I can do audio. I'm going to try to do this. And it was based off of an offhanded comment that somebody made. Is that like triggered me? That set me off. And then the end result was me deciding I'm going to make this radio play and I'm going to show that I can do it. And I did do it. And I walked in there with a very, very different mindset than what I typically walked into projects with. There was never any doubt that I could do this. There was never any concerns about how much time it took. I thought it might take a month. It took 2 months. And that was because I actually had a lot of problems voicing general dialogue. And I discovered that although I have done unit voice acting for years and 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 years, literally like at that point, I had been doing voice acting for about 21 or 22 years. Basically since I've been doing voice acting since I've been a toddler. So it's been a long time. And I wasn't prepared for this. I was actually not prepared for this one bit. I walked into this and voice acting some lines. I spent 2 to 3 hours on individual sentences. And then I would revisit them the next day. And then I had to develop a strategy because I was actually destroying my throat. This is despite having been a caster for some years and being accustomed to doing long bouts of acting. It turned out that actually standing and talking with an energized voice nonstop for 2 or 3 hours was slowly destroying my throat. And then I also learned that whatever I drank changed my voice very, very dramatically, and whatever I ate like an hour before also changed it dramatically. So then I had to come up with strategies to try to keep my voice consistent. And because it took 2 months, anytime I had to make an addendum to a voice I did a month before, I was in big trouble. I was
Yeah,
in
I've
big
been there.
trouble.
That's rough.
And I didn't know how to do it. So I had to learn how to do it. So, but I still had the confidence that I could do it. And that was a big change. That was a big change because it was something I knew how to do. I knew how to do voice acting. There was rough spots. I didn't know how to do general dialogue and talking for long periods of time. But I had done so much voice acting, I knew that, well, if I struggle with this, there's ways I can practice with it. And then I did. And then it was finished. And yeah, like you said, there was problems with it right out the gate that I wish I could fix. I wasn't happy with Adeshima's voice. There was some parts in it that I really wish I could change to this day, but I consciously said, no, this is done. I've proven I can do it. I have done it. And this reached to the stage of a higher quality than I expected. And if I start nitpicking individual things now, I'm going to go insane because this was something that I had invested day to night, dawn to dusk, pretty much every single day of those 2 months, except for a few exceptions working on. And when it was done, I said it was done. That's it. And I thought I might revisit it, but then I decided I wasn't going to. I just was going to leave it as it is, flaws and all. And then I never looked back on Retribution or any of its stuff ever again, except in a recording for the Looking Back series, which I actually think is probably rather irrelevant and I don't need to really release. And I'm content with that. Like that was. I'm not really content that that is what Retribution became, but I'm content with the conclusion of the radio play in itself. So because it was something I set out to do, I sat down and I did it. Now, if I could do that with something like StarCraft 2 and the data editor and stuff like that, and put in the real extra time to actually work around this shit, then I could be content with the results of that, and I'll be confident in the exact same way. But it's a much more uncomfortable pipeline as well. So that's like the main thing that really stops me is I really don't like the editor at all. It's sluggish, it's disorganized, and it's not labeled in an intelligible and human readable manner. So working with it's really frustrating. Doing basic stuff is really frustrating because I'm accustomed to well-designed tools. I'm coming from a background of user-made stuff from the past for like StarCraft 1 and Age of Wonders 2 and stuff like that. I'm not accustomed to this shit anymore. I've dealt with worse. I've most certainly dealt with worse, like CV5 and stuff for Tiberian Sun and all this other crap, and shareware and freeware and all this other just junk. I've dealt with shit. I've bathed in shit. I'm Canadian. I literally live in literal shit. And StarCraft 2's editor is still a lot of shit to swallow. So I have to like overcome that. And I don't know if I can, but at the same time, I'm not gonna be concerned if I can't. But assuming I can, it's the exact same thing. I'll walk in with a goal. And I'm going to probably be really anal about a lot of details that are going to drive me nuts, but you have to recognize not to get too invested into them.
Well, it sounds like you at least have found something of a winning formula as far as making your content and getting it released. The probably like the biggest thing for me on a personal level has always been that I kind of let myself get sucked back into the idea that I would be remaking Inconsummate, which is the campaign that I made all the way back in 2017 that we're going to eventually do a co-run of once it's actually done. But the biggest thing is that, and you know what, this is another thing you can blame Necron for, actually, because he was like, well, if you have already observed these flaws with your project, I don't see why you wouldn't go back and work on them. And of course, my philosophy, which I probably should have stuck to at the time, was, well, it literally doesn't matter what the flaws are for that project. It's released. It's a time capsule. It's not meant to be like revisited. So why would I release a patch now after like, a year or whatever it was at that point? Maybe it was like 6 months of the last patch when it was meant to be final, and there was no other work. There's no other game-breaking issues. There's nothing like, there's issues with presentation. There's voice acting that I should have recast. There's a bunch of stuff like that, like presentation-related things, execution-related things. There's micro sections. Got to get rid of those. But like, there's nothing that's like flawed in the sense that would impede players from actually finishing the product. And it wasn't made maliciously like Warcraft 3's campaigns were. So there's really nothing for me to change in a patch that wouldn't be like literally making new content, which is not what I would view a patch for. A patch is for like updating stuff to fix things with the express purpose of maintenance. And that is very different than what Necron was trying to tell me to do, which was literally like rework entire AI scripts and, add in plugins and a bunch of extra stuff. And I said, well, there's like some things that I could see myself adding in, like that wouldn't be too damaging. It would be very low impact. So like risk assessment wise, it was probably like maybe a month's worth of work. But as we were waiting for some extra stuff from the tool devs at the time to come out, I realized that there's probably other things that I could do during that time that would not really impede with everything else, because I still needed to wait for certain things to be done before I could even engage in them, like related to the AI. So I decided I'll revoice all the voice acting. So I actually have a version of Inconsummate 2017 that has completely new voice acting. It's all in there. And that would be like a 1.5 version or something, because like that's a fair amount of work, and I did that in like a couple days, because it really wasn't that many man hours. It was a lot of work, but the voice acting came across much more consistent because it was all done in a time span of very short amount of time. Like you were just talking about how if like it had already been like a month or two and you had to revoice a character's lines that you'd already done, you're kind of fucked. Same sort of thing. And so that was an issue for me, was like, all right, I've done the voice acting. Like that's definitely one thing that I wanted to do. All right, I did it. And now we can do the AI. And like, as I kept working on it, it very quickly came into a feature creep. And then I realized that I wasn't going to be satisfied. I had basically unwittingly entered into the project's discovery phase again, after already finishing it. I was discovering and risk assessing shit for like new abilities and a bunch of other random shit that like it would feel tacked on, because it literally was. It would feel like random and out of the blue. It would be unprecedented, and it wouldn't stand to improve the project as much as it would stand to completely change it from what it was originally, which is why I became very unhappy with the idea of doing that, and I just decided to remake the entire thing basically from scratch, as opposed to worrying about like expanding the existing maps or editing the existing content. So that was where like the idea of a remake became floated, and I realized that was much more attractive because for a number of reasons, I'd finally be able to divest it from the basic being externally consistent with StarCraft, which is of course not internally consistent to begin with, and just make it, like we were talking about in the last podcast, make it more optimized for what my particular stories called for, and that was where I decided to do that. But that's an example of where like that's not even a new project. That's an old project that I'm going back to edit, and I quickly become like way too involved in. And so that's an example of feature creep and like some of the worst of the worst, where something that starts off is like, oh yeah, this will take a month. Oh yeah, well we're waiting for some tool dev stuff, so I'll just redo the voice acting. That'll take a couple of days to do, and you're just adding more shit to do. Like, oh yeah, I can do this, I can do that, like without actually getting into the point where you're. I said earlier, I went into the rediscovery phase of a project. It's even worse than that, because I didn't even start the project with the intent of making like a new project. I didn't go into it thinking, yeah, I'm going to go back into the discovery phase, because I've got like all this internal logic in my head, all these internal terms where it's like you have discovery, which is risk assessment and figuring out like plotting out like a script or world building and figuring out like what the arcs of the characters are going to be and how that's going to manifest into gameplay and figuring out what the number of missions and all this other stuff, basically logistics of your project. And then you go into actual production. I was just skipping, like I was doing both at the same time basically, but while I was doing production, I was coming up with more ideas to do more production on, which is like the most disorganized way you can possibly do it, and obviously the worst kind of way.
That's
for
how I
something like
normally
this.
do it.
Yeah, well, listen, it didn't
Mine's like
work out for me.
semi-organized chaos.
Yeah, exactly. So
Well, it's like my videos.
right.
Like, you probably treat videos sort of the same way. Like, I have a lot of old videos on my site. Like, the Wings of Liberty recording. I mean, everything up until, like, Generation 4 is pretty messy. Some of the old ones are really, really bad. And I could go back and re-record those, but, like, what's the point, right? Like, it has been suggested to make new reviews for them, so someday I'm gonna, because I've got, like, a bunch of old reviews that aren't working because they were, like, YouTube videos, and I had to, like, rip them off, and I need to reassemble them and stuff like that. But I've never gotten around to it. But I might make, like, new reviews on the side and release them both at some point. But I'm never gonna go back and re-record those videos. That's why I hate doing, like, castovers or post-recording castovers, stuff like that, because like a lot like I sometimes have to come back in new reviews and address old subjects with new discoveries or new things I learned or correct old mistakes or whatever. But that's like the entire point, right? Because that's why I released things sequentially in a date. That's why we have generation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's because you go all the way back to generation 1, like that is the very beginning. And my speech is horrible, and the audio quality is bad, and the video quality is bad, and that comes with the territory. And like those are problems. Like bad quality is a problem. I know people who use YouTube aren't really, into that whole thing, but I view it as a tremendous problem. My viewers view it as a tremendous problem. We've been pursuing, perfecting, and squeezing out as much as we can out of the video pipeline for years now. Even up to within like the last couple weeks when I made a change to an article to reflect our current pipeline. It's still dramatically different. A lot of things were just changes just to the way that the bat files were laid out, so it's easier to edit them, you know. But I'm never gonna go back and redo these old video projects just because they're like wrong or low quality or whatever, because they were released as they were. There's not much point in revising them. But whenever I go to release a video project or anything else, it goes through a verification phase. I watch the entire thing. Sometimes I send it off to other people, and if there's a problem, like sometimes, like in the Skyrim Season 2 videos that are not currently released, the last segment was composited of like 10 different chunks of edits, and I had misplaced 2 chunks, so there was a combined total of about 2 seconds of black. So on the old system, that wouldn't be enough for me to re-encode it, because I was looking at 25 hours, 26 hours, 30 hours of my computer basically being unusable because of how slow it is. But this new system with the Ryzen 7, I can encode that in real time. So I had no problems with stepping back, fixing the problems, re-encoding it. But say, for example, in the Sonic 2006 videos that I've been editing from Schwa, which are a big, like, disseminary, dismantling things and discussing things, I noticed tons of new shit even when I'm watching those videos. And rather than like go back and edit those and switch in new stuff, I just tackle them on in later subjects. I just revisit them in later videos. But I did go back and re-encode them to fix the TV range color issue when I noticed that crop. I was like, hey, Schwa's videos are actually double compressing because of Vegas. This is actually really easy. I can fix it. So there was one video that I think did not get fixed because I didn't have the Vegas project for it anymore, but all the other ones did. So that was something I walked back and fixed, but I didn't change the actual content.
Right.
So like Armageddon Onslaught is
well, that's like
example.
a patch, right? That is the same thing as like maintenance.
Yeah.
It's not designed to completely change the content.
But they're not released either, too, right?
Right,
So
right.
there's like, I have like a filter that it has to pass through the filter before it gets released. So if I was to say, for example, make Armageddon Onslaught today, it would go through at least 2 people that I know and trust to analyze and assess it to what they felt was confident. And if they tell me there is a single problem with it, I will not release it. I will go and fix that problem, and then I will release it. I'll fix it to my standards when they point it out, and if I'm confident it's fixed, and then I will release it. So they're like a reflective boundary of my standards. And then, like, this actually happens for the videos as well. There is actually currently a performance problem that I'm getting from OBS I need to figure out and address because that's been pointed out. But say for example, I had the StarCraft 2 campaign, and it was functional and ready to play. But before I would say, for example, give it to you to make a video out of or something like that, it would actually go through somebody else first. So even though this project is still only privately released, it's still something I wouldn't even privately release until it went through that layer. That first of all, I was 100% confident, and then somebody else that I knew and trusted that I've known for years is also 100% confident. And
Right.
then once I have that absolute confidence in the final product, there's still a good chance you're going to encounter some bug that we don't know about, that we haven't run into. But we can say, based on our experiences as a developer and then as a very, very experienced developer who's outside of the project, if we can both say that now it's ready to go, then it's ready to go. So I have a very, very exhaustive review process for stuff like this. And the Black Sun Radio Play actually went through that as well. So it went through all this stuff. And the biggest complaint I got from the people who viewed it is that they may have chosen some different music for their project in certain specific locations, and that was it. So the problem is that I noticed nobody else noticed, which is not necessarily like that's not really something that makes me feel good, but it's something that I can say that I have an absolute confidence that at least I have reached other people's standards that I know have very, very high standards. So that means I can release confidently.
Right.
So
It sounds like we have very
like
similar processes for that sort of thing because I've got a list of people called interns, which, of course, inspired by your terminology there, and they,
yeah.
unlike actual interns, well, much like actual interns, they're not paid, but unlike actual interns, they have pretty good standards. They are elitists, we'll say, elite interns, and these people are the people who I select for testing. Some of them are like the selection basis process is a little bit different. Like Connor, for example, I've seen him play a lot of different things. He's a very high level player, probably the highest level in the server, at least that I'm aware of. And then we've got a couple of people who are less skilled than him necessarily for him to be the highest, but I'm very confident in a couple of different things. So like one of them may have a very different play style. Like I know, for example, there's a couple that are more micro focused insofar as not that they want to play smaller scale stuff, but they will try to find ways to spend APM on in battle as opposed to in macro. So they want to try to engage in that way. And that's very useful because it's a very different playstyle to myself. And then there's people who are more like myself in terms of playstyle, but have varying skills with varying races and combos and all this other stuff. Maybe better than me, maybe worse than me. And this is a way that I can get people who I've seen demonstrations of their skills before, so I know their skill set. I've seen their preferences, and I'm able to judge their feedback through those lenses when they give it to me. And I also know that they actually give a shit about what they're playing, and they're going to be engaged, assuming the content engages them. And that'll be a good barometer as well for like figuring out if I've met their standards, similar to what you were talking about. So we wind up having a lot of similarities. It's weird that this is something that I've basically never heard of outside of you and I, though, because like you'd think more people would try to do this sort of thing, especially if they're claiming that they're not influenced by like the whole trying to get the word of mouth out there and all that stuff to like there's a lot of people in the Warcraft 3 community and the StarCraft community that they want to get their maps played by as many people as possible. They want the clout. They want to say like, oh yeah, my map was streamed by so and so for 1,000 of viewers, or it got this many views on Jay Barrino's YouTube channel or whatever. And like these are great platforms for you to get your stuff on, but that should be the reason you make your content. The reason you make your
I
content.
mean, my content was featured on Blizzard's launcher. I don't need to really even be concerned about that anyways.
Right, yeah. Well,
But at the same time, like that's more disconnected to me than just making, my AI tests. Like having my stuff on Blizzard's launcher, having my stuff featured at BlizzCon, I didn't feel a single thing. Like I was just like, well, that's kind of neat. And then I just moved on. It doesn't affect me. I just really just don't care because it's not something I'm engaged with. Like it's somebody presenting something for other people, and that's like the whatever. Like there was I don't remember specifics, but somebody was telling me something about some of my projects are featured at some very large LAN parties some years ago, and that was like kind of neat. Like that at that time, that was like the biggest events that I knew of that were hosting my stuff, and like that was cool to hear about. But it doesn't involve me. Like it's not me engaging people, as opposed to like my AI, where like I make a video about my AI and I send it to like a Swedishman, and then I talk to him about it, and that's more engagement to me than having my stuff exposed to the millions of people who use Blizzard's launcher, because I'm never gonna meet or talk to any of these people. Like I don't give two fucks about what they think about my shit, because I'm never gonna talk to them. They're never gonna share with me their experiences. They're never gonna talk to me about my particle effects or my portraits or anything else I did for StarCraft. They're not gonna talk to me about any of this stuff that I did for Dwarven Combat. They're not even talking to the people who made the projects at the leadership level. They're not talking to anybody. It's literally just a banner somewhere people are saying. It's all over there somewhere. The engagement and stuff's all over there somewhere. That's why I hate shit like YouTube. That's why I hate shit like upvotes and likes and all this other crap. It's all there as an excuse to get out of engagement. That's all
Right.
there as an excuse to avoid engagement. And there was a point I did care about that. There was a point that I wanted to have staffing and successful projects and make front news on these websites and stuff like that. And it's really funny that like I stopped caring about that years ago. Then I swung around, and now Blizzard's featuring my content. So like, and now I just don't give two fucks. Like I back
How
then
the tables
that
have
would have been
turned.
a big deal. Yeah, back then that would have been a big deal. Back when I was hitting puberty, I would have cared about that, but now I don't. And now it's happening, and now I don't care. And like I ask, like, why should I care? Right. Because like let's say I go through the internal verification, like this is for videos. Like I have a lot of people who watch my videos, a lot more than what like the 4 months anyway. It's because there's a lot of views that will rack up at certain periods. And I every now and then I got people that email me or whatever, and like they all associate stuff through word of mouth. So their friends watch it, and then their friends watch it, and then their family watches it, and so on and so forth.
Warcraft
But
3
a lot
Run
of
is
those people
very
still,
family friendly, just so you guys know. Should
yeah,
check it out.
it is very family friendly. And like, but at the same time, like I can make a forum. I mean, I've got the CC forum, but I can make a dedicated forum if I really want to. But then when you look at the same issues I had with the YouTube views, where some of my videos had 50,000 views, and like one or two comments were relevant to the content on the video. And you know, you look at people like Jay Barino or whatever; they're just soulless mimes, and they get no engagement at all out of anything they do, because like 90% of it's bots. The rest of it's just non engagement, and they're not even content producers to begin with. They're just color casters. So engagement to them isn't even really a big deal to begin with. They're basically just entertainers, or like comedians. And like comedians come in, they make a show, they get ratings, they get their job, they get their neat bucks, and then they move on with their life. And but there's no like real actual engagement. It's just a show. But you know, if you walk into it looking for that to begin with, then it's going to hit you really hard. Then it's going to be a problem. And that is a consistent issue I have seen with a lot of people in StarCraft. I grew out of that because I grew up and I realized, wait, aiming for this stuff is really dumb. It's really dumb, because you're not like, if you want to be popular, you're not gonna make StarCraft maps.
Right.
You're not gonna make Warcraft maps. You're gonna move on to something like Unity or Unreal 4, or if you want to stay in the customs department, you're gonna go on to Skyrim. You're gonna start making porn mods and things like that. If you want to be popular, you're not gonna get it here. And now you have to learn an entirely new set of skills that are just for the exclusive chance to become popular. You're gonna crash and burn like every other fucking Tom, Jick, and John Doe who tries to do this shit. And there's a lot of them. There is a lot of them. A lot of these people begging for Patreon subscriptions, begging for donations because their life fucking depends on it, because they made some fucking kit bash in Skyrim. It's absolutely pathetic. And that's what modding is today. And that's like what a lot of the StarCraft mod shit is that people just don't do it to make a project that's high quality. They don't test their shit. They don't unit test their shit. They don't go through a verification process. They let the time nag at them, and then they get caught in really juvenile pitfalls, and then they release trees sliding on the ground because colonialism. Or you have people like Oracle, where they throw money at it and then they still get nothing out of it. And like,
Yeah, I don't know. I still don't know how that even happens.
it happens a lot. It's not just Oracle, it's StarCraft Universe and all these other cucks.
Cuck.
Cuck. And I mean, like, but the vast majority of people I've talked to, that I still talk to, they're like, they've got money and they are not going to spend it on this. Like they spend it on their hardware at the most. And like they can't even conceive of spending it on it. Like why would you, for one, like for the most people, they would ask, like one of the first questions they'd ask is, why would I involve somebody else in my project? Like regardless if it's a commission, a paid outsider or whatever, it's like, why would I involve someone in my project? Because most people who actually give a shit about their projects, they like to keep their staffing very, very tight, very, very, very small. The more staffing something gets, the worse it is off. Regardless of who the staff is, even if it's people you can trust, even if they're skilled, even if they know their shit, even if they're involved, it still muddies it. Every step gets muddier and muddier and harder to manage, no matter who the people are. But you hire an outside help, it's just even worse. And now, if you're worrying about time, if you're worrying about polish, now you've got to hold other people accountable to that. And you are not going to find other people adhere themselves to even remotely the same standards that you have, even if those standards are not that high at all. Like that kneeling animation I made for Antioch Chronicles 3. That was something I would not have let pass, but they were like, yep, we'll take it. I was just like,
It's your
I mean, okay.
project.
It was like, okay, I mean, it's your decision, but you know, I wanted to have all custom particles and everything in this project, but it's not my project. And I'm not going to go out of, I mean, I did go out of my way to make assets for them that they didn't use. But you know, it's not my place to say, well, you are going to use this for this spot, you are going to use this animation, you're going to push this much for that. You know, I'm not the one calling the shots. It's not my place to call the shots and let them do whatever the fuck they want, even if I don't agree with it. But at the same time, like, it highlights that on the flip side, let's say, for example, it was me for some reason hiring out these people. None of the people in Antioch Chronicles 3 would even make like the conceptual cuts for like a prototype demo. Nobody in the project would be able to produce content that would meet my standards. None of the voice acting meets my standards. None of the editing meets my standards. Maybe like UI, but I don't like use custom UI, so I don't need like those talents. But the thing is that, you know, I can't hire out. I can't ask people to really help me, except for like very basic proof of concept stuff. If it's something I can build off of, like data editing, for example, HKS was slapping together data editing for me. And it's like, well, he hands me a basic framework and then I work off of it. But now he's got other stuff to do. But at the same time, it's like, I can't ask him to do all the details that I want, because it means he has to put in a lot of time for something that he's not really invested into. And that's like somebody who I can trust to put out like high quality content and precise content to what I do tell him to do. Like, randoms, you can't ask that, even if you pay them for that. Like Oracle and his project, he paid people to make him models. They didn't even have normal maps. Like, he didn't even know to ask for normal maps. He didn't know what a normal map even is, and he's paying people thousands of fucking dollars for models. Like, he didn't even educate himself on the basics of what he actually needs for the game, even though the information is literally right in fucking front of him. He didn't go through the effort of educating himself, so he wasted his money. You know, just because he had money didn't suddenly turn him into a quality project. Just like StarCraft Universe, they had $90,000 or whatever the fuck it was off of Scamstarter. They didn't have a single asset that looked any good. They didn't have a single map that looked any good. They were using really, really shitty ports from World of Warcraft with the really, really crummy recolors. I can do a better job than their best assets within like a day. Like that fucking Buru model was just gross. And like the people just don't educate themselves on what their investment actually goes into, not just with money but with time. Like, if there was one thing I wanted to come out of this podcast for people that are struggling with polishing and time, it's to get an idea of what your time is actually worth. So like this asset I was talking about when we started, that I invested days into, like, okay, I got it to a stage where I'm pretty happy with it. I can add shadows and glows and stuff to it, but that's one token out of like how many more hundreds to thousands am I going to need to call this project actually finished? Because it's a years long project. So I don't even think of like how long we have to go or how many I have to make. I think of it in my sectioned off time of each week game time. Because I've got an extra week to work with, I think of how much time do I put in for my next session? How much time do I put in planning for the future? So I only think of it in those sequences. Therefore, I keep it very manageable. So I only have a couple of jobs ahead of me right now. I'm going to work a little bit on an orc place. I'm going to work a little bit on the earthen place they're at right now. I'm going to work a little bit on the anvil, which is a town that they're potentially going to go back into in a couple sessions. So I push forward the progress bar a little bit uniformly across several different areas within the vicinity. And then I work a little bit on something in the distant future, like this token. And I don't think about like, okay, last week I didn't do much work, or the week, like the couple months I've been very lazy. I didn't do that much work at all, and I'm behind. But I don't think about that. I think, okay, so the players are here. They're probably going to get this and this far. So what kind of assets do I need for this? And then how can I spread that work out so it doesn't overwhelm me? Because again, your time is valuable, but it's also not just your time as in your physical allowance, but also your mental fortitude. Just because you can work dawn to dusk or dusk to dawn like I can doesn't mean that you should. There always is times to recognize when you are going to reach your own mental limits and your own physical limits, because retribution, a good chunk of retribution's assets are actually based on week uptime, where I would not sleep for up to a week, because that's what it took for me to be able to focus to model. Is I had to be awake for several days because I have a lot of issues with concentration. My way of dealing with the concentration was to just not sleep, so I entered an equilibrium of being tired enough that I wasn't distracted by the own voices in my head, but I was awake enough I could still model, and I would hold that for as long as possible. But I can't do that anymore. My health is now very bad. So it's certainly not something I would recommend to anybody else.
Yeah, you'll burn out pretty quick if you do something like that. At least I would guess.
Yeah. Well, it took me some years to burn out, but that's because I'm very, very stubborn. I was very, very stubborn. I really wanted to get that project finished. And I mean, I didn't like the graphics portion, all that. Like I said, it was all thrown out. So, like, projects are they're a personal venture. They're a very selfish thing, and you're going to get personally invested into it, and you're going to face a lot of hard decisions. Like the reason why I say it's going to take 3 times as long is not because of feature creep. Actually, feature creep extends that time. It's because of the struggles you're going to face with yourself. I don't know anybody who doesn't have some kind of issue that they face during development that you know causes the development time to exceed. Like the OCD thing I mentioned, that's a common one. Like a guy will be programming something, and he will get caught in a loop of trying to make it as efficient as possible. And it'll get to the point where like he's making the most minor insignificant of changes to save like 1 ms across like this tremendous train where like you're not really going to notice it. But he does it because he knows he can do it. But then he gets really stuck in it for a long time, and it deadlocks his entire project when he has, however many thousands of other, similarly scaled things he's got to get at. So what he does is he takes a vacation from the project, and then he comes back and he tackles it, and he resolves the problem within like a day or two. So, like, this is a guy who is like professional level. And like not like Blizzard hee professional level. I made a web page once in JavaScript, but like actual professional level. And he still has the same problems that like I do with models and alignment and stuff like that. It's just getting stuck in something, getting caught in the golf hole. So like it's hard for me to really structure this because it's been a while since I've really worked on a project like this for a long time. And it's been a while since I've talked to people who've been involved in projects for a long time. It'd be easier to address point by point case things like this. But like there's a guy that I know who's going to be running a D&D game for us. And he's run D&D games before, I guess IRL or whatever. And so he has like some past experience, but he's like not like super confident that he's gonna have a really easy time with this. But he's starting with something big. Like he's not using existing assets. He's trying to basically replicate my workflow, but he doesn't have the skills that I have. He doesn't know how to use Unreal 4. He's not really patient enough to do the token editing that I'm doing. But he's still trying to make like a custom world and stuff like this. And he's kind of balancing it on top of like being a college student or whatever and all this other shit on top of it. So he's got a lot of workload laid out for him. And the main thing I told him is to focus on the big picture first. To look at like what it is. Like he's trying to make a setting. He's trying to write a setting and trying to make like the history and the characters and stuff like that, which is something a lot of people have problems with, is making a setting. A lot of people just really aren't creative, even though they want to get into it. They have a hard time with it. And that's a hard thing for me to sympathize with, because for me, it's second nature. I can just piss out characters and worlds and anything at the tip of a hat. So, but other people have problems with that, and then they get hung up on it. So this project's getting hung up on it because he doesn't really know what to do with it. So I tell him to break it down, to always break down your big problems like bugs or testing or polish into pieces that you can quantify. So take, for example, making a setting. So you think about, so what is it you want to define your setting? Do you want it to be like an anime setting with waifus? Okay, so why are there waifus? Why is it an anime setting? Ask about the defining shapes. Like, is this something defined by politics, political, like civilian kind of engagements? Is it something defined by wartime engagements? Is it like a Cold War wartime? Is it a nuclear wartime? Was there past histories? Like, what led us to this conflict? We fork out by asking ourselves a series of basic questions that you may not be so, like, when you start thinking about like my setting, what am I making a setting about? It's a science fiction setting. You may not merely approach these questions like what leads to X and Y, but you lead to those questions by asking yourself something basically: what defines my story? With my StarCraft 2 campaign, that story has changed every iteration. We're on J. Every iteration prior to J has sort of a similar like set of characters, but wildly different setting and story and stuff like that. It kind of changes depending on my mood, but it's all built in the same way. Like I talked about the setting before, I don't know where, in the podcast or in Special Bust or something, where it was like, I ask, how do you synchronize cinematic involvements and story involvements with what you see on the screen as a player? Nobody has tried to do that yet, but I'm going to. So in game, you plop down a starport and poop out a battlecruiser in a couple minutes. Like, why does the Dominion only have 50 battlecruisers?
Right,
So
right.
like you ask questions like that, right? So we want that to make sense. So that's like the basis for my setting. And yeah, this was something we talked last podcast, is I want that consistency. So I establish that consistency before I even think about the events. Because now I have a meat to go with the events that says, okay, so why would there be conflict between people and how would they be resolved in a world where this is actually possible? And now we can have things like resources. What kind of resources does it take to actually pull off operations like this? We start talking about things like electronic warfare and jamming and subspace inhibitors and all this other stuff. And that gives us all the tools we've got to like build our historical events that lead up to now. And now we can actually make things interesting. Now we've got a setting. We've got all we need to actually set down a campaign and tell the players what we need to do from the characters' mouths, how and the whys. And we've also got a lot of meat to make our characters with. We could have people that are veterans to this. We could have clone soldiers. You could have newcomers. You could have ancient aliens. You could have Amon. You could have Void. You could even have an anteater. And now you have a framework that can actually make them all work. And
I don't know if
we've
you can
just
have an
formulated
anteater. That might not be legal.
No, it's legal here in Texas. You can have your anteater.
Well, so that's where you go back to asking, is it a waifu setting? No, it's an anteater setting, and you've got to, you got to set your campaign in Texas so that it makes sense. I see where you're going with this.
But it can't be an assault anteater. It can't have a blade length over 18 inches. And it can't be automatic. It's got to be a bolt action anteater.
Bolt action?
Yeah.
No, I think I get what you're saying, though, anyways, is because the main thrust of it is that, like, I don't know if this is exactly related, but really, I think it comes down to overhead, and this guy is experiencing overhead because of a lack of skill, which is definitely a version of overhead where he doesn't, like, have experience, I guess might be a more neutral term. He doesn't have the experience to do it, so he's not confident in his skills, and that confidence may be, accurate, or it may just be in his head. But this lack of experience is coming from overhead, and so he's having an issue getting his story and his world built because of that. And overhead
comes.
That's why I say
to break it down,
right? Exactly.
Like this is the way I approach all stuff, like the bugs, right? Like with Warcraft 3 and that freeze I was having. I never really did find out why, But I tried to break it down in the same way. So I said, okay, so I have a map. I'm trying to test custom AI. The custom AI has to be responsible. Originally, I thought it was a build space thing, right? Because I've had issues where Warcraft 3 will crash because the AI's build space is fucky. And so I'd expand their build area and mess around with the map, and then that wouldn't work. And then I would sequentially start turning off AIs, and that didn't help either. And then I would change the AI scripts and it stopped crashing for a while and then it started crashing again. But I couldn't find like a common denominator. Like what I'm searching for with all these changes is I'm trying to break things down into components and identify what component is crashing. And then I work off of that. And I deduce that crash has something to do with the AI, but I never figured out why because I don't understand Warcraft 3's AI. And that's why I discontinued that project because I had already spent several days trying to figure that out and I couldn't figure it out. Nobody else knew what it was. I had no point of reference. I had no expert opinion. I had nothing to go off of besides complete guesswork. And at that point, like I had consumed so much time that I just lost interest. But it was like the same kind of breakdown process I broke down with StarCraft 2 and like the AI not building the greater spire and stuff like that is like the player can build it. So it's obviously an AI problem. So you're fishing around for fucking nothing. And this is what kills my motivation the most is fishing around for bugs while not having like any success or any real means to go off of. And like that's an issue with StarCraft 2 a lot with the AI is because you're in unexplored territory that the developer themselves didn't want anything to do with. Like the people who made the campaigns didn't want anything to do with this AI at all. Now you're walking into this with way less tools and know-how than they did, trying to do what they couldn't do and what they didn't want to do. So to expect like success is to be pretty arrogant. And we've had success, just not quite enough to make the whole thing sing. And that comes at the cost of like you have to break down your workload. And that's with the polishing thing too. Like this all is part of the same approach. What I'm trying to talk about is the approach. The approach that breaks things down and then separates them by the time investment, the mental investment, and the relevancy. Like with that graphic, I fucked around with the colors forever, but the colors were only just part of what I wanted to do. And they were sinking tons of time and I wasn't even getting anywhere anyways. So I turned it around and did things in verse and said I'll do my edits first and the colors last. Because maybe by the time I do the edits, I'll have more of an idea of how I can deal with the colors. And it turns out that I didn't learn anything anyways. I had to do it the way I didn't want to do it, which was by manually redrawing it. But along the way, I learned some little odds and ends and more comfort with what I was working with, and I was able to draw it in a lot less time than I thought I was going to, even though it was still a lot of time. But because I changed my approach, it was less painful of a process than what I was already going through. So it's like it's hard to word, I think. But the point is there, you know.
Yeah, just reach out and grab that point.
And pierce it into your sphincter.
That's the only way you can understand it properly. You gotta just let it in. Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to close on is there's a point that you made a while ago in this conversation about why, like the question was posed, why would you hire out or take in some other staff? And I think that this point goes back to the overhead point. It goes back to the idea you should be breaking things down into understandable components when you're having issues. And I'm going to draw upon a few examples here. Not all of them are going to be related to team members. The first thing is a direct response to what you were talking about before, which was like just recently where you're talking about breaking things down into small components. So there's a way that I write my AI. And I don't know how you wrote your Brood War AI specifically because I haven't looked at some of your work in a long time. And I looked at it more recently than you did. So odds are you probably don't remember either.
I don't remember.
So one of the ways that I've seen AI written is very similar to the classic Blizzard way. It's very unreadable. And they just like mix in upgrades and attacks and build orders and all this other junk. And so the first thing I did when I walked into this is I thought, okay, well, I'm learning by using what they did, but the intent is to make way better AI than they can make, and obviously tailor it to my maps and to my players and to the playstyles of the various AI that you're going to be fighting. That's what I did in IskatuMesk. It was very bare bones and was relying a lot on pre-placed junk because we didn't have the framework required at that point to actually produce AI that scale up with the player and build without blocking their bases off. The one AI in the entire campaign that it builds from scratch, literally just a couple of drones, is an ally AI, and there was a very pernicious issue that we didn't completely finish, where the drones would get stuck inside like a wall of colonies trying to get out to build something, and the AI would just hard lock, and that was really, really frustrating.
That's normal AI behavior as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. So we didn't have a request recycler that tells the AI, hey, don't hang up on one request you can't satisfy. If you can't satisfy it after 15 seconds, just fucking refresh and do the next one. Like, we didn't have that technology at this time. We do now, so that wouldn't happen anymore, even if it was to crop up. But one of the main issues that I saw with building up from scratch is that we didn't have the ability to do it. We couldn't tell the AI where to build its stuff. We couldn't even dream of trying to tell that shit until like late 2018, probably maybe mid 2018 with Create Script. But that's like a very different case than just giving it a base layout, which is what we can do now. And when I was sitting down to do that, the AI stuff, I realized that probably one of the better ways to write the AI in the first place is to sort of create these functions. And you'd basically take these blocks of code and turn them into functions. So there'd be the town function that would give all of the build requests for the main town, and they'd all be in one block of code. And you wouldn't have to worry about throwing them into fucking upgrade blocks or in the middle of like requests for attacks. Like, that would be way more readable. And so you'd multi-thread all this stuff. And this was very natural for me, and immediately it was something that I tried to do. And for some reason, Necron called it matrixing. I don't know what the fuck he was talking about. But the main idea was that you'd have this stuff being multi-threaded. And the approach is like multi-running all of your different functions. So you've got your town function, your upgrade function, your defense functions, your like figuring
then
out
you
like
hit your thread limit.
well, yeah, but we got that extended anyway, so that's not an issue anymore. But that was definitely
an issue for me because I did the same thing.
Right. So like that was one of the first things that I immediately found. Also, call is just broken. You can only have one call active at a time. So that was another laughable thing. So
a lot of this stuff would have been nice to know when I was still working on the game.
Yeah, we got that fixed as well. Now you can have nested calls even. You can call within a call. It just works like a normal stack, but before it did not. It definitely did not. And
oh dear.
There's all sorts of weird shit like print the debug command rather. That only worked in brute. If your AI script was part of vanilla, it would work. But if your AI script was a brood war script, it would not work. So that was cool. Yep. So we had to deal with that. There's a lot of retarded shit related to the AI specifically, but looking past that, just looking at what we were doing, like that method was infinitely more readable, much easier to look at, even if you were, for some reason, extracting it directly from the AI script file where it renames all of your block names. You could at least say like, oh, this is 0000, and that has all the build requests, and that seems to be consistent with all of this AI, so this guy must be multi-threading his build requests. Like, you could just read it as an end user, even, if you're trying to like reverse engineer something. It's much more legible, regardless of who you were coming into it, and it just seemed natural. Like, these are basically functions. Like, you're separating this out into individual functions of the script.
Not 3,000 lines of fucking whatever that Blizzard uses for their scripts.
There is a point, though, where you probably want to start out writing that stupid way, or you're just going to have to learn how to debug, which is what I would advise people to do generally. Because if your script doesn't work, if there's a point where it breaks, this multi-threaded approach stops it from hanging up the whole script, and you may not even notice that something is broken. Whereas before, if it hangs up because of like a request in the Blizzard style of doing it, it will never progress past that point. It's very easy to say, oh, it's hanging up on its observatory request or something, and like I can just go and find where the observatory is and I can fix that. Whereas obviously in this case, it could hang up part of the script but not the whole thing. And that was an issue where a lot of people were running into problems with it because they, like you were talking about, this guy replicating your work for your workflow for D&D. Well, some people have tried to replicate my workflow for Brood War AI, and they run into this issue. And like a legitimate complaint is that it's harder to debug, but that doesn't mean you should just sacrifice the fucking, the advantages that it provides you. It just means that you need to get better at debugging within the system, or you need to get competent enough to not make the problems, to make the bugs happen in the first place. I don't really think that last version is actually tenable, but it would at least be behoove some people to actually go that route and try to understand what these functions even do before they try to they need to understand how round the wheel actually is before they try to reinvent it, as they say. And so, as long as they understand some elements of this shit before they jump in dick first into a spiky wall, they'll avoid some of the pain because they'll know how to adjust their angle. And I guess the other main comparison I wanted to draw is another thing that I've had to deal with personally. So you were talking about like why, like somebody was asking, or you were, I think that was a hypothetical where like people who you knew who had the money would never invested into other people because like they would have trouble keeping them to task with their own standards. Like as a project lead, that's a major issue. Now I'm lucky enough where people are coming to me and offering to do stuff for me, and like I tell them straight up at the beginning, like if I don't like something, I'm not going to use it, and I'm going to tell you what I don't like about it, and hopefully you can take that and fix it, because like it's going to be real awkward otherwise if you're like telling me that you're going to do all these art assets for me, or you're going to like make all these engine implementations and stuff, like you're going to do all this coding, and then I'm just like, it's not good enough. Like I'm going to feel like an asshole, even though it's pretty much what I have to do. Like I have to be that honest about it because it's my shit. But you know, that's obviously not something that's going to make anybody feel good. So I had to, you know, be upfront with them about that. But people seem to be interested enough that they're willing to do stuff like that for me. So I guess one of the things that I wanted to mention is it still is overhead because you still are waiting for certain things. Now you're banking on them to continue to be dedicated. And if they, at some point, and on a personal level, it's nothing against them if they decide, I'm not really that interested in doing this anymore, or I'm suddenly too busy, or there's, you know, like iQuare's PC has literally been like missing for half a year now or something. Like he's just, it's not been working at all. He's had to like get multiple like replace parts and stuff. That's where I made the joke that he's like working on content on code for me on his Nokia, because at first that's what I thought he was doing, is like fucking typing it on his phone, but he's actually like got a shitty like laptop or something that barely functions, and he's using that to he can't even compile the code. He sends it to me and I compile it because his PC, his laptop literally can't compile this shit, so it's that bad. But you know, things are looking a little grim, but he's making it work, and we're making it work. It's just, it's funny to me that like, you know, despite that, he's still been dedicated. And like that's a very rare breed. You'll ever find like anybody who's through thick and thin willing to do that for you. And you're like, there's the promise that like, hey, if you end up getting a project to, you know, that complete stage or whatever, you need help with it, or you need voice acting for it or whatever, you know, I got you. Like that's like a theoretical benefit that he might get later if he ends up deciding to work on something. Like he's put in a lot of, he's literally been working on this project that we've been working on together for like a year now. And that's a crazy amount of dedication. I never would have expected somebody to stick around for that long and be that consistent with the work. So even though it sounds counterintuitive, I wouldn't say like shut yourself out to all possibilities if you're an aspiring creator and somebody wants to join you. But like, I'm just lucky enough that I'm probably the only person in this fucking community or remotely associated with Brood War to be making content of the kind that I am making. And it happens to coincide with other people who want to play this content, and they're willing to, you know, donate their time or whatever the case may be, their art assets, their fruits of labor, so that the project can be completed in a faster way and with a higher bar of quality being achieved. And like, these are people who, like iQuare himself, like he wants to play the finished product of Hydra, and that's what motivates him to keep working on this stuff, at least partially, along with him just wanting to become a better programmer. And it's like that, you know, the same thing is true, I'm sure, for people like DF, who's Deep Dark Fantasy Man on the calendar, and he's like making all these ramps and stuff. Like literally, we don't have reverse ramps in Brood War, guys. It's not fucking cool that we don't have reverse ramps. Okay, it's pretty fucked up that we don't have inverted ramps, like north-facing ramps in the game, and that if we wanted to take the ones from remastered, we would sooner take a shotgun to our fucking head. But that's that's the state of things, man. That's what we got. And the fact that somebody is willing to occasionally throw down a bunch of effort onto a ramp, make it look way better than what Blizzard has ever even dreamed of making in 100 years, because for some reason they just have deviant artists like Photoshop shit and like throw doodads in there and everything, and it doesn't even have a fucking standard definition equivalent. It's all in their stupid remastered like, what a mess. So whatever, like that's an aside, but like there's a very rare breed of people that you're going to meet. And so, like I said, don't necessarily close yourself off to that opportunity to meet people that are like that and are willing to work on that stuff with you, but be very selective, be very wary of who you know, associate with in that sense, because it's more likely that they'll flake on you than not. And I'll put it to you this way. You know, Connor may be a very dedicated tester. DF may be a very dedicated ramp maker and icon drawer and artist and autist. And iQuare may be a very dedicated code man. But I have had more people say, yeah, let's make a project together, and fuck off into the void after like 3 months or 3 years or 3 something, than I've had people who stick around. And you'll notice that I only mentioned 3 dedicated individuals. There's more than that, but 3. So let's just say, count your fucking 3s before they hatch, and you will live to regret the day you stumbled upon this podcast. So I don't know if you have anything more to add to that concept, but that's pretty much it, man. That's what one of the things that I thought of when you were talking about, like involving yourself with more than one person, especially as the project lead. Like it's a recipe for disaster, even for the most like disciplined, dedicated individuals. And you'll notice that despite the fact that I've got so many people who I view as very dedicated and having high standards and wanting the best for my content, despite having so many of those people associated with the project's development, it's still not even close to being done like a year after it's entered development, or longer, depending on what you classify as development. So like that should explain enough. Like I'm not saying that's a like the death knell of the project, but it is something to keep in mind. Like it is no guarantee that by involving more people, you're shortening your work or making your life easier.
Yeah.
So
if anything, it's more demanding because you got to keep track of everything they're doing on top of it. And if they do happen to flake out on you and it was something you needed, like I needed Killer 11 to not be an asshole, I needed Jidmus Streg to at least talk to me once a year.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like if iQuare does void, which I don't think will ever happen, but if the fucking Russian government invades Ukraine again and kills them, like there's going to be hell to pay because we will literally not have any fucking code. So like I don't have any understanding of it. It's all him, man. I have no idea what the hell's going on that front. And so we would be back to a very basic looking square one if that happened.
You need Necron, man. He can save you from crazy mountain on high.
Yeah.
He'll come down with his birthday cake and
the immortal thing that got him removed from the server in the first place was that he said that I was a sociopath who, if I saw somebody sitting at the edge of a building, I would kick him off the top of it. So
wouldn't you?
Let's say if that building was Crazy Mountain and that person was Necron, he might be right.
I mean, I would kick people off the ledge, but I'm not trying to be not a sociopath either.
I don't know, man. Life isn't a video game. I know it seems
I'm
like
Canadian. I live a video game.
I just think it's Crazy Mountain time. You know what I mean?
Crazy Mountain.
I still can't believe it. Like some of the stuff that I joke about, I remember is like actually an event or something, or is like grounded in reality, and that just proves simulation theory all that much more. So
I mean, the shit I hear about coming out of fucking like games industry and Blizzard and shit, like it just blows your mind every single time you hear it. Like
like people sleeping in the fucking floor and like cutting themselves in the bathroom at Blizzard. Like what the fuck? At some point, like I know we haven't done it in a while, but at some point we probably should cobble together a bunch of news like I did in the Fatherdom episode. It was like a couple episodes back.
Fatherdom.
Yeah. And that was a good episode where we just went through a bunch of news in the industry and like we can only do it once every so often because there's really nothing worth fucking reacting to in the first place for the most part. But some of this Borderlands shit has been insane. Some of this fucking like I don't know how much you followed it, but it's not just the game itself being hilarious. Like my brother has it for console, and we were playing some co-op while I was over at his house or at my mother's house, and some of that shit is so crazy where like he talks about how the game is fine, and then if you go into co-op, just opening the menu freezes the console for like 10 seconds. And like I just can't even fathom like how do you go from performing fine in the menu? I've seen him play it, so I know he's not like making that up. Like it's totally like you couldn't even notice. Like maybe if the TV was bigger, I had better eyes or something, I would be able to see some issues with like obviously the game looks like shit, but just looking at that, we're playing and we're trying to level up and it grinds the game to a halt immediately just by pushing the button. Or like we walk up to an ammo container and we open the ammo container to buy ammo or weapons or sell something, and just that destroys the game. Like what the fuck? What is happening here?
Dude, I still can't believe that Legacy of Void is a real thing.
Yeah. Can't believe it was Oros the whole time.
Like, that's a real fucking game that people were paid to make. Like, that. I'll never get over that. Like, the World of Warcraft stuff that I've recorded, too. Like, I don't know if you've gotten into that series, but that.
I have completely forgotten my place in that, but I did go pretty far in. I was probably like it was like halfway through your development of the series overall is where I stopped because like there was no more left.
And the Shankarium series, like I was just going through some of the season 3 videos, because I'm thinking of like trying to finish that sometime soon. And the season 3 Shakespearean videos, some of the bugs in that are like, even years later, I just can't believe that they're real. Like the transport bugs in fucking Dalaran that would phase you through the ground because there's like an edge of a volume. If you're on a transport, it'll flag you, cause all the NPCs in the entire zone to disappear until you're rezoned again. And like that's just from being on a transport, just walking. Like that, and that, like that's just, oh man.
Listen,
It's
as insane as that sounds, it really doesn't sound like it tops the fucking Warcraft 3 bit where you like every single fucking time there's an attack that could remotely threaten your base and you're not prepared for it, you just pull them halfway through your base and they spin
yeah,
inside your base and die to static defense. Like,
you like
that? How does that get fucking released? Like, how? Like,
how like that, dude?
How does that even happen? How can you release a game with that in there? And like, it was even worse when you were in the middle of the Frozen Throne stuff and you were like playing micro missions where shit was just getting desynced by Arthas or whatever. And you were like, oh, by the way, designer Dave said that this game had 2-week development time for every map and 3-week testing time for every map. Like, I know it's 3, but I can't believe that.
Yeah, the Warcraft 3 run was pretty fucking psychotic. The AI leashing inside my base and dying to like 1 unit.
I especially liked when their heroes shut down. For some reason, it was the heroes. Like, sometimes units would do it too, but I noticed that heroes in particular, like, there was a point where you lost your base to Sylvanas before she was Fel Void Purple, and she just sat in where your necropolis was and died to a single spider. Like, it took you 5 minutes to kill her with that spider, but she eventually did die and did nothing.
And meanwhile, I just have like the rest of the map covered in fucking towers. Yeah. Nothing ever attacks them or does anything to them because they just broke when my main died.
Well, I guess like, they didn't think it'd expand. The very fundamentals
of Warcraft, these AI shouldn't break on something like that. Like they have really made an exception for that campaign with how fucked it is.
I just can't fathom how, like.
Do you like what I did to Illidan?
Yeah, you surrounded him in shades. That was a good bit. I like when you first surrounded the fucking circle, and then you were like, well, first it didn't even work, which was funny, but then you surrounded it a second time.
He's channeling it like 5 fucking feet to the right, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. But like, whatever, I can get that because like he's in the region or whatever, and it was funny that he didn't teleport inside because that would have saved you the next bit. But then you fully surrounded it, and then you just surrounded him because like he stopped even trying to go there after a while. After like spinning around the shades for like 5 seconds, he just stops trying to go, and then
he just shuts down.
Yeah, and then you just
eventually the move time's out, and they never reinitiated because who's gonna put shades on the point? But I mean, trying to beat that mission legitimately is.
Oh, by the way, speaking of trying to beat it legitimately, when I had to play that mission, I had to consult what I call the Cuck database, which is basically just some guy's video. He's like some Australian guy, and he's like, "This is a great fun mission, guys. Here's how you beat it." And like I call him a cuck because he actually likes the game. But the takeaway that I got from that mission is he actually explained how on hard. The AI actually directly counters your unit composition with their units. So the reason why there was 1 billion caudals, or however you say that word, was actually because you built 1 billion frostworms, and that's what they're scripted to respond with. Like that, just knowing that Blizzard made a counter system for their game and then gave it to the AI, like I'm sure it's just done through some stupid trigger. But holy fuck! Also, you never ended up opening the map.
Consider the fact that those flying penises are like the most cost efficient unit in the game.
Yeah.
By like 500% or more compared to the closest competitor, which would be the Royal Guard. Like those units are just fucking insane. Like you saw what I did in that defense map. Like the fact that AI can just spam those, and the fact that they exist at all is just so stupid. There, so and then they dispel magic on top of it because why not?
Yeah, because we need another magic immune OP unit. Infernals were not enough? Oh, do you remember when they gave the Infernals an air attack in the Balthazar mission for no reason?
That drove me fucking nuts. I was looking at it and I was like, they're not attacking trees. Yes,
they
are.
Well, they weren't really
They're
attacking.
attacking
They were throwing fucking Fell Void energy at them or something. I don't know.
They were.
It was fucked up, man. I really like how after that, like, honestly, one of the biggest burning desires I had while watching you fucking suffer through that campaign was like just going through the existing campaign maps and just fucking all the stats up to like actually resemble NRTS stat wise, and like reworking all the spells and shit, like basically making a new game state, and then trying to play the campaigns on the hardest available difficulty without changing the AI, just to show like the AI is it takes so much for granted. It really does rely on the fact that the game is so poorly paced and with stats that make battles take 8 years to resolve. Like just the fact that that's
the Sylvanas Garithos map where they're sleeping for like 10 minutes and how like if I don't kill one building, I cannot kill their base because they just piss out shit so fucking fast. I had to restart it and be absolutely sure.
I'm not really sure what happened with that one because I went back and watched my playthrough of that and I failed at the beginning because like I forgot to mind control mortar teams or whatever, but then I just restarted. Like I failed like 5 minutes in basically, and then I restarted and I wiped only Garithos and I was able to destroy the other guy. Like you wiped 3 out of 4 bases somehow because 3, and like that was obviously that's feasible, but it was very strange to me that. Like, even with that, you still had to spend like 20 more minutes afterwards tower cheesing the guy, whereas like I didn't have any issues after that. So I wonder if like the patches have really fucked up certain things about the game.
Because, they have. I'm sure they
like,
have.
There's obviously
like the humans in that mission are fucking insane. You have to kill the humans in that map.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that like there's an obvious case where like the fucking Mountain King Stormbolt's a fucking like you can't Stormbolt the ships anymore.
Yeah.
Because like that's just
that got me.
That was destroyed. That really annihilated me too. But I just like I understand individual cases like that. Like I don't understand them not getting fixed, but I understand like how that could happen theoretically. I just don't get how they can
because the game has embedded data in the fucking campaign files. It's not supposed to be something that just changes with the fucking patch.
Yeah, but this is Blizzard, so I can understand it happening. I just can't understand them like fucking the difficulty up that bad, though. I mean, obviously that would make that mission very difficult. But
I mean, have you been hearing what they've done with their patches for that game? Where like over half the maps desync, and like they've fucked up everything. And apparently, according to those reports, people are posting in special buzz that apparently the vanilla campaigns are just like broken fucking everywhere. Like a lot of those bugs I recognize, they're not new.
Oh yeah, well there's also stuff like random lines not having voice acting, which really confused me because I didn't run into that issue when I was watching your fucking.
I think I ran into that once.
There's 2 or 3 individuals, the Night Elf Runner one, and then there was also in the fucking Garithos mission, there was like a 2 arms line that they didn't say when they were approaching the Banshee in the opening cutscene. It's just really sick stuff. Like I don't understand how you fucked that up in the first place. But I just really like how much of a fan campaign it seemed like after that point where it's just this fucking fan production with this broken audio. That was really funny to me on a very personal level because I played so many shitty custom maps. And to see Blizzard's own work reduced to the same level. Not that it ever wasn't that level, but on a more superficial basis, it was in that moment. And that really made me shed a tear of happiness to... finally realize you can't argue with that kind of stuff. Although, don't worry, if you thought that Warcraft 3 was the only game getting destroyed by patches, Remastered recently got a patch that finally enabled the extended colors that were enabled in 161 and then for some reason blocked when the remaster shipped. But the kicker is you don't get to... well, you can choose, I think, in the menu now. I haven't really seen the UI. But most of the extended colors are not readable, and they're randomly assigned a melee or something. So like you can 1v1, and the enemy could be a black color that you literally can't see on the minimap. And I don't know how that's possible.
What about that menu? It looks like they fixed the menu according to UED Commander.
Yeah, that was great. The discs are perfectly placed. Like not only that, but you have like the colors are even more insane when you play like team games. like 2v2s, 3v3s, 4v4s. Because then in 1v1s you can just change it so that it shows like red for your enemy. Like you can change the color with a setting. I forget what the hotkey is, but that's always been in the game. But if you do that in team games, then all of the ally colors become yellow and all of the enemy colors become red. So you have no distinction of like which player is which. So it's not a perfect solution in that case. You just get fucked anyway. So like I really can't believe that they just don't test this stuff. Like I understand they've implemented this fucking system where you can pick your colors or whatever, and then they don't actually give a fuck if the colors don't make things just blend in. The game's already unreadable as fuck with their new settings. So yeah, I guess so. That's true.
Well, like when you don't play your own game and you're just trying to appease a few like vocal minorities on a forum that you don't even really care about, but your shareholders are getting antsy about, you just basically do anything just to perceive that you're working on something. And that is what Blizzard has mastered the art of, is just being perceived that they're working on something.
I wonder if they fix the map where it's in the melee ladder pool, and if you connect on it, you desync and lose MMR. I wonder if they fix that. That's been a bug for about 3 months.
Dude, the bugs...
Can you imagine playing ranked?
The bugs in
you paid for ranked. You paid for fucking matchmaking, and there's a ladder map that has no difference from the iCup version as far as I can see, except that it fucking drops you! And you lose MMR when you get dropped!
There are bugs in World of Warcraft that are 10 years old or more, and people pay monthly for this shit.
Paid monthly for Chinese men to mine gold. Oh, man. In other news, Warcraft 2 is actually a reasonable game. Well, the levels aren't, but it's actually a reasonable title, it seems. Like, mechanically.
That was when Blizzard, like, kind of was toying around with the idea of becoming a game developer until they decided, no, let's be a shovelware developer. And then you got StarCraft, and it was going to be Warcraft in space. And then they got called out on it, and they were like, oh, fuck, we got to put in effort. So they put in some effort, I guess. And then after that, they were like, shit, we are just too big to put in effort anymore. Effort is too expensive. And then you got everything to come after.
I really like the fact that, like, there was somebody who was saying that I was claiming that, like, we've talked about this before, but I was mentioning that I think that Blizzard's success with Brood War was completely incidental. Like, it had nothing to do with them, really.
Yeah.
And
it really is a fluke.
Yeah. And somebody was saying that they felt like it was more inevitable because of the amount of talent in the company at the time. And, like, for as comical as that initial statement is, like, I just can't, like, you got to remember, a year and a half before they released the title, it was a fucking Warcraft reskin. And you're telling me it was inevitable?
They had talent in the company?
What?
What talent are we talking about? Like their janitor?
I heard he mops up dog heads or whatever. He's pretty good at that. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's really it. Like, there is no talent in that company. There hasn't been.
I think Glenn Stafford was okay. He's an okay guy.
How much rum did he drink?
I don't know. It was enough to make the Zerg sounds.
That's a lot of rum.
And that's a lot of podcast. So you got any closing remarks?
No, there's a lot I could say, but it's probably better to go in specific points for it because it's kind of a big subject. Like there's a lot I talked about that's all related. There's more to it, but it'd be better to divide it up in some manner if people had like specific questions about how to approach specific things. Otherwise, it's kind of like shotgunning in the dark. Right.
So we will take your questions at some other future point. I think the next podcast we do will probably be... I have had this idea, and I was going to make it like a by design video, some like solo content or whatever. I was just going to write it out. But the idea that I had was that everything, when you get down to it, is is kind of writing. You know what I mean? Like even the gameplay expression of your characters and your factions and your AI and whatever, that's all writing. It's like all contributes to the feeling of
Well,
like
you're
what your
writing a
story is.
script of experience, right?
Yeah. And so I think that could be an interesting podcast topic to broach whenever we rejoin for next time, probably next week if you're available.
Yeah, that should be.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think that will close us out then. Thank you very much for joining me, Mask, and thank you very much,
Smoke
viewer,
weed.
for smoking weed with us. And yeah, if you ever want to play a good game, I suggest you don't, and instead you watch Mask's Warcraft 3 run of a very good game.
Remember, kick people off of a rooftop if you see them sitting there. They fucking deserve it.
Yeah, how dare they sit on that
Assholes.
rooftop? Fucking crazy
How
mountain
dare they
pieces of
permeate
shit.
my property? Sons of bitches. Go back to your own country.
Yeah, here's a wall. Now get over it.